Okay, there we go. Hello. We are sadly not having our bygone keep tonight, but that does mean that Joe and I get to yap a little bit because we were lucky enough to see the Dungeons and Dragons movie early. They had that. Was it AMC? I think Amazon Prime. Thank you.
I think they partnered with AMC. I want to say the theater was AMC. I don't know.
I think so too. I think the AMC was the theater, but it was Amazon Prime that essentially like allowed us to see it early. Whatever the reason was, we did that, and we got to see it last Saturday.
It was the 19th.
Right. Thanks. He's just shouting answers for me. Yeah, so we did get to see it, which was nice. So we've been meaning to kind of yap about it, and since unfortunately we cannot bygone keep, everyone pray for Nenders' power. Our poor DM lost his power tonight, and hopefully he'll get it back because that sucks because he's in a cold place. And he was even saying the second the power went out, he felt the whole apartment go like 10 degrees colder immediately. So I was like, oh no. But I
should have figured it out, Nanners.
I know. This is on you, Nenners.
Look up some sort of crank situation to a dangerously wired power cable for your laptop and then just pedal it.
And you'll be fine. Exactly. His laptop is such a power hog too. It's nuts. But
see,
burn your clothing.
We've been burning things for power forever.
Oh god, he's in like I think where he is, the temperature is like 30 degrees or something, so it is pretty chilly for him.
It's basically April. It's springtime. He didn't need his winter clothes.
It's beautiful here. It was like 55 and sunny when we went for a nice stroll. It was lovely.
It's 31 degrees where I am, and maybe he could need a coat, but that's not the point.
Either way, he's driving outside and just enjoying the thing he can enjoy, which is his car. So enjoy it, Nenners, but I hope your power comes back. So for the uninitiated, we are a cheesy bunch on this channel, and what we call cheese is usually when we're trying to be kind of cheeky with our DMs and attempting to get something to kind of go in our way, maybe. So, for example, say, I don't know, the ground falls out from beneath us, and we might cheese it and say like, hey, Nenners, can I grab the bad guy's foot before I fall so I drag him in too? Like just try and get a little cheese in there or something.
Just massage the rules.
Exactly, massage the rules. And as a joke, a few times, some of our players would say, "In the interest of cheese," and then give their proposal essentially right after. And we were like, if we ever chat, it should be called "In the Interest of Cheese," because that's all we do is talk about how we can cheese the rules. So that's where the title of this comes from. And I already probably know, my name is Fooz, and I'm a player on this channel many times, and I also DM on Saturdays. And I have Joe with me today, who can introduce himself if you'd like.
I feel like you didn't give yourself credit for all the art and throwing together of overlays and generally running things. I just turn on a camera and show up. So you do a lot of hard work.
That's cool.
In the meantime, I'm Joe, and I get to play and be on Cheese because Fooz and crew are dope and just let people into their community, and sometimes it works out. I'll say that I'm good enough to have worked out.
Yes,
and then on Sundays, I'm on Dispel Logic on Twitch. Come watch us play D&D. It's good times.
Yes, Dispel Logic. Speaking of freaking artwork, oh my god, it is amazing there.
Oh, I'm so spoiled.
And they're super fun. Like, yeah, super. All of the shout outs to Dispel Logic. You guys are like, I don't know, my like Sunday comfort food almost. Like, because I'm usually so sad that it's Sunday and I have to start the week again, and you're like, oh, this is awful. But like as I'm doing like boring domestic shit, I just get to like turn you guys on and listen, and it lightens the blow of Sunday ending. So it's something to look forward to, and I very much appreciate it. So they're great. Make sure you check them out. So on top of our review and such, we're probably going to call Maya on later on for us to kind of have a regular cheese session, which is when we just kind of chat. Awesome. Thank you, Dragonette Rest. They're super worth it. But in the meantime, we're going to review basically the Dungeons and Dragons movie since we did see it. But we're going to at first start with a non-spoiler review and then give super high warnings about spoilers and then chat about that afterwards. So thankfully, because of VODs, you're welcome to kind of come back and listen to it maybe after you've seen the movie. I am kind of hoping that they do have a good turnout this weekend because a lot of people were forecasting that the movie might not do well, but it's been getting good reviews from people in the community, and now you'll hear ours.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of hoping that people do what I was going to do before I got the chance to see it early, is wait 2 weeks and then see it so the theater gets more money. They get less. But I also need them to make enough money that they might make another one.
Right, exactly. Like so that they keep exploring things like this, you know, and it's really interesting, like just as a general, not even review, but just thought about this. It's really fascinating to me because this is like a lot of sort of nostalgia in terms of in referencing the lore and stuff, just because in both of our campaigns, we're very heavily homebrewed. Like, of course, we still reference things that are happening in the regular lore or kind of keep up with the timeline, but a lot of it we're kind of like pulled away from. So in a way, when I see and like hear about the lore of what's currently happening in the game, especially in the movie, I'm like, oh, this is a blast in the past. I haven't interacted with those things in a while, but it's really cool. So going to see it 4/2. That's, what is that? Is that Friday, Saturday? That's Saturday. Sunday. I know dates.
Sunday. Also, awesome. Good on you not having people behind you. I had a kid kicking my chair the whole time.
Oh my god. No, we always sit in the like super far back. So like we always go like back center to the best of our ability.
No, it was all right. The parent at one point made one half-assed attempt to be like, "Hey," and then they came up. But
and then that was it.
that's you know what? It was mostly fine.
Also, before we get into spoilers, just like as general like theater like comments and stuff, because this happened in our Discord too. I believe Mark was asking about, you know, whether he should see it or not, and I love the idea of like the theater energy when it's kind of a rare opportunity. Like for example, like Dungeons and Dragons, huge movie like this has never really come out before. So I feel like if you see it early, you're kind of in with that hype crew and people who are kind of like-minded. In my opinion, of course, Joe had a kid kicking at the back of his seat the whole time, but the crowd that we had was like really fun, like all adults. I don't think we had a single kid in that theater. So it was really nice to be around other like gleeful nerds who are happy to be there. And I was worried that we were going to have people who were like, you can't do that according to the rules. You know, just kind of talking shit. But I didn't have any, like, it was just a bunch of people having a good time.
On the other side of me, because I ended up driving an hour and a half to see the movie, even though it was playing in my town. But at the midway point, I'm between myself and one of the people I play D&D with on a non-streamed game. Mm-hmm. We met in the middle to go see it because none of my local D&D peoples were available. And I was like, you know who has enthusiasm energy? My good friend. And then we went and did it. But it wasn't too bad. as far as the energy. Like it's nice. There's the hype. We got lunch first, and we were wearing some D&D gear, and
Yeah.
the waiter recognized it. We talked to him about D&D for a while, so it was
Cool.
well, you should definitely watch it, and then at a certain point we will declare spoilers, and then you can choose what to do.
Exactly. We will definitely let you know when it's spoilers time, and Joe will have a nice background that says spoiler talk. But for
uh,
now, it is safe
yeah,
currently.
D&D gear in that she was wearing a T-shirt that had a D20 on it, and nobody knew mine was D&D gear because we got T-shirts with art on the back of our characters in a group,
Oh,
and on the
cool.
front it says Blackfire Company because that's our group, and
Cool.
it's very nice. So for us, it was D&D gear. He wouldn't have known. The waiter wouldn't have.
I have
Um,
I have numerous D&D shirts, and I like a full nerd went there in D&D shirt. I think I had my Ranger shirt on at the time. Um, but I have a Ranger shirt, I have a Druid shirt. Pooba gave me a D&D or a Dungeon Master shirt. That's what I was looking for. So I have I have numerous nerd shirts
there
from
we go.
D&D.
Well, there's requests for merch. You should jump on that. And if you wear leather pauldrons, I will figure out something equally ridiculous and join you in film. I mean, Sunday's short notice, but maybe a different week. Um, no, there's
Let's
something to be
go.
said about the theater energy and going with the people,
Yeah.
and especially just a bunch of people who are hyped enough about D&D to see it early. That said, if I could, I'd have a private theater in my home and never have to deal with people ever. People are
Yeah.
the worst.
I have such mixed feelings because I think I used to be very much like I don't give a shit, get the fuck out. But since the nostalgia train and the uprising of geekdom, especially with the Marvel stuff, because that was a huge part of my childhood too. So seeing people excited for things that uh, especially me as a colored girl, surrounded by a bunch of white people who are like, you don't know whatever, and I'm like, no, this is my passion. Like this is what I fucking hang out with. Being around just such a welcoming energy that everyone was just happy to be there. I think that's so rare of an opportunity, and also I'm a I'm a people person, I guess, when it comes down to it. So when I'm in a crowd and you get to hear people go oh, or laughing at the same time, I love that energy. So if you're someone who kind of loves that kind of community energy in a way, then 100% go enjoy.
I don't know. I've always said I'm an introverted extrovert. I'm as extroverted and outgoing as I gotta be. So I've
Yeah.
worked in customer service for a long time, and now IT, which has a lot of face-to-face customer
Yeah.
service aspects. So I'm very outgoing at work, and I would imagine I come off as someone outgoing in this crew. Uh,
Yeah, I think you
I'm
are.
not reserved by any means, but
Yeah.
also if my friends didn't call and be like, "Hey, you want to do a thing?" I might not talk to them for 2 weeks because I'm just in my house and living my life, and I don't need anybody.
Right. Yeah.
Eventually, I get lonely and I reach out, but I'm glad to have some extroverted people who rope me into things because
Oh my God. Yeah.
as much as I love, I mean, not this D&D. I never love it when D&D gets canceled, but when I have to go to a place and then it gets canceled, I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'll go to a place because in my head, even though the whole time I'm like, I'm gonna leave my house as soon as I get there, I'm gonna have a good time.
Exactly. I
And I will
definitely
say,
see that.
sorry,
No, no, I'm
the
agreeing with you.
the theater energy for the right movie can definitely be it. I went and saw Sonic in theaters on a whim because a friend and I wanted to do it. Not that I'm knocking seeing a Sonic movie. It was
Yeah.
better than it had any business being, but Sonic was never my jam. But being in the theater made it. I guess spoilers for the original Sonic movie. If you haven't seen it, it's been years.
Yeah. It's been out for 3 years or something.
The credits thing
Yeah.
shows Tails.
Yeah.
And it was a quiet, normal, respectful theater the entire time. But when Tails showed up, a whole bunch of grown, mostly men, lost their shit.
Yes, exactly.
It
Exactly.
was so funny.
Yeah. All right. So the kind of our general, review of if you like that energy, fucking go see it because this is a rare opportunity and who knows if we'll get another one. So try and be a part of that energy if you really like. If not, then don't. But in terms of general movie review, I think overall I'm just gonna say I was happy with it. I think initially I was definitely harder on it just because it has big shoes to fill, right? It really does. And there were a lot of things that they changed just for probably the spectacle or the fun of it that might not gel with regular lore or this or that. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, yeah, that's anyone's table though, right? Whose table is 100% rules all the damn time, you know? So it made sense that, you know, they're going to be things that they're going to mess around with, especially when it comes to like following a film and a storyline, that you have to make it so it's watered down enough so that someone who doesn't understand D&D can just walk in and be like, oh, this was an enjoyable time. But they have to have enough nuggets in there so that people who love it can go in and be like, I know what that is. So like, I think that's a very hard line to straddle. And to be honest, I think they did a pretty good job. Overall, I was definitely happy with it. I think once I kind of got over my gripes of like, what the hell? And I'll get into like the details of it initially, but I know you right out the gate were like, I enjoyed this.
No, it is good. I don't think, because it sounds like you might have warmed to it a little, because you initially rated it lower than I would have, and I'm curious once we get to the spoilery portion to dive into why.
Yes.
But the highest compliment I can pay it is it felt like someone was telling me about their D&D campaign.
Yeah.
It felt like a story someone could have had at a table.
Mm-hmm.
It had the right, like, there's a very D&D quest to be going on.
Mm-hmm.
And some compelling, just like some cool villains for what would, just picturing fighting that villain in a D&D campaign. This would be a dope fight.
Yeah, exactly. And also the way they handled that too. I also appreciate that like the combats when they happened were quick, which I was glad. Because like indeed, like when you're playing it, of course it takes, you know, an hour to whatever it might be, like super long, but in real time it's quick, like shit's getting flung everywhere, people are doing all this crazy. So I was very happy with the way they represented combat. And Vogley saying, whose shoes are they filming?
You said they had big shoes to fill. Technically, the only shoes that they literally have to fill are the D&D movie from 2000, which was garbage. So they blew that out the water. But to what you're referring to.
Oh my God. Pooba and I, we watched it ages ago, obviously when it first came out, because that was like our only representation. And at the time I was like, I'm just happy they had a black elf in it. That was the only representation we had for ages. And I didn't think much of it because I was young and I was just like, that's cool, I guess. And that's fine. But then like, as someone was, oh God, what is it? I think it was Die Curious on Twitch here. I follow them. We rated them once, but they had they played a drinking game while watching it recently. and like one of the things that they drank was like anytime there was bad armor or whatever, and like they were like dying at the end. So like it's a terrible movie, but it's in my brain it's almost like so bad that it's fun in a way.
I mean, there are those movies. I'd have to rewatch it to know if it crossed into fun for me. I'm gonna freely advertise a very old thing that's, I think you can get it on DVD, but Gamers and Gamers 2, both on YouTube, shitty low budget D&D movies. I love them dearly. The first one is so bad I only watch it to get the references that they make to it in the second one. But I love them both.
I can keep up with it. That's awesome. Dragon at Rest said, I saw Chris Pine in an interview and he said that his nephew plays D&D and he was worried that the movie might be bad for D&D. So Pine was under the impression, was under pressure, from his own family. No, it was good. I think we can kind of discuss things that are in trailers or kind of like general public knowledge, which is to say, like, we actually talked about this in Discord as well, but I was so relieved that the humor was there, but it wasn't the Marvel problem of like, you know, something bad happened, here's a quip. You know, like, of course there were quippy times, but it was fine. It was like heavy moments felt heavy. Anything bad, they gave it the time and the breath it needed, which was really nice. And I think I was worried also because the trailers highlighted a lot of that comedy. And I was like, oh no,
yeah,
don't be that the whole time. And thankfully it really wasn't. So relieved from that aspect, at least.
I would say Pine does have good timing, at the very least in this film, for sure. It was, he was kind of filling he's the bard, which is just common knowledge. So he fills some of that face role. And so his dialogue is witty. But yeah, it does a good job of being funny and irreverent. Like, it feels like it's Guardians of the Galaxy style of, this can be very funny group team energy, but it doesn't step on the toes of like the actual story, giving it weight and having any sort of just impact because they
Yeah.
let it breathe.
Exactly. And I was also worried with the paladin because I was like, I just liked the look of him, I guess, in terms of like the armor and the way he was presented. Like it was one of those things where you stare at like just looking at him, you're like, that's a paladin. Like I know what that is the second you look at it. And I was worried that they were just gonna make him like a really just boring stick in the mud kind of like that whole stereotype of paladins, where it's like you're lawful stupid and it's annoying and you're just, trying to make sure everyone's following the rules and blah blah blah. But he was delightful, and whatever they showed in the trailer, I was worried that was going to be it, right? Like that was what we were going to get 100% of the time, but it really wasn't, and I exceeded my expectations in that regard as well. And I think in talking about him, I think we can kind of talk a little bit about like the classes, I guess, and how they're represented. Because everyone, just the previews and everything that you've seen, Chris Pine is like the bard character essentially, and I was shocked that not a single spell was cast from him.
That is part of why I want to rewatch it, because they made stat blocks for all the characters that are available on D&D Beyond.
Did they?
I want to double check what spells he has, because a lot of bard spells are verbal only, and I'm willing to bet they just made some of his magic subtle, because that was one of my thoughts as well.
Yeah,
but something like friends wouldn't be big, flashy, and magical.
That's true. Like, but at the same time, like they're usually, I mean, I think that's also like, this is where I have to detach my brain. And I think that was part of the reason why initially I was like, because for the most part, those spells usually have some kind of component, right? They're doing
a lot of them don't,
like, depending on what it is. But like, even if it's a verbal component, right? They might just be like, blah, 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 blah. And then like the spell goes. And I think they were so overt with all the other spells that if that was the case, it was very unclear. But yeah, in terms of the classes, the races and classes, yeah. So, what's his name? Chris Pine's character? Oh God,
Edgin.
Thank you. Edgin is the human bard. Although for him, it seems more just like he's kind of playing the glue of the team, right? Like he's keeping everyone together. He's clearly the face. He's the one who's kind of like chatting and planning, as he says. I think he even says that in the trailer too, if I remember correctly. He's the planner, exactly. We have Holga.
Yep.
God, I'm trash at these names. She's a human, I'm pretty sure, barbarian. Yeah. Yep. And then we have the druid who's a tiefling. Her name is Doric, which I did not love that name. For many reasons, mostly because my art history brain is like, that's a type of column, and it's the most boring one you can get. What the hell? If you don't know, go look up a Doric column. It's the ugly, it's the boring one. It's just a literal tube. So I was like, why? Anyway, Doric is the tiefling druid, which I was a little sad about anyway, just because I think tieflings can look so cool, and I feel like they just went as bare bones as possible with it when they're like,
interesting.
A headband of horns, tiny little pointed ears, but we're going to make sure your hair is curly enough so you can't really see that. And then a tail that never comes up.
Because I genuinely liked the look of the tiefling, specifically because somehow tiefling has become the poster race for D&D, to the point where people will crack jokes about being basic because you're human. They're like, nah, you're basic. You made the edgy goth tiefling. Right. Good for you. Now, tieflings are fun, and I've played tieflings, but I was like, yeah, some blue or red or purple over the top thing, it'll fit and it will work and it'll be fine. But I was like, you know what? This feels subtle. It feels like someone had demon blood in their lineage and it just altered them enough. I thought it fit. But
I see what you're saying, and I like the idea of it, but I wish that it was more like, I don't know, that it was less of the like, I don't know, mutant garbage kind of Marvel thing where it's just like, they got powers, but they still look great. Like, if she does have a little bit of the demon blood, like, give her weird scales on her arm or something, or like make one eye goofy or whatever, like, like do, not goofy, but like just different in some way. Like, I don't like the idea that they literally, like, it just felt so minimal, I guess. And she doesn't have to have like, I have pink skin and my horns are 6 feet long. Like, and it doesn't need to be dramatic in that way, but I kind of wish that they played a little bit more with like, if you have demon blood, you probably won't look like a regular girl who just put like a headband and a fake tail on, right? Like, I feel like there should be just a little bit more there. And I think in general, I just enjoy, out of the ordinary things. So for her to kind of like be passable at a glance. I was like, come on. I wish there was something a little bit more to that, but I'm not wildly upset with it. At first I was like, okay. And then, okay, so going on with the rest of the teams, we got through 3.
Simon, I believe pretty much everybody's human. I think Simon was a human sorcerer, right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, he was human. He was human. For a second, I was like, was he half elf? No, he's human. And then the human paladin as well. I forgot his name.
Oh, something with a J, I think.
Oh no!
Yeah. That's bad. He was dope.
He's genuinely my favorite character.
Right?
His name.
He was very good. Hold on, let me.
Oh my god! Real quick. I think it was mostly because like they might have said his name a couple of times, so they very much like, I don't know, were like the guy, you know, the guy.
Oh no, it's
talking about.
His name has a J at the actor, but it's Xenk.
Xenk?
Xenk. I don't know why that didn't stick harder. Xenk.
Wow, that's all right. Look, Xenk and Doric. Who's naming these characters? What's going on? Oh gosh. Dragon at Rest, you said I felt that way about Grimoire and Guardians. What do you mean?
Oh, she was just green, but just a lady. Other than that, like she could have been more alien, I suppose. But talking about the tiefling.
Right. When I was waxing poetic about the tiefling, so pardon me. I can go on for days. But yeah, I Xenk was really, really cool. He was definitely my favorite character, but he was the paladin, and I don't know if it's spoiler. Maybe I should save it for spoiler because I don't know if I don't want to ruin people's expectations of what he is and what he'll be doing. But that's the main crew, right? We didn't miss anyone. I'm pretty sure.
It's the hero team. Yeah,
that's the main crew. One thing I will say is I had very kind of mixed feelings. I'm trying not to. I like when people can really like form their own opinions, and I don't want to like influence anything because sometimes, I don't know, for me, if I watch a review before I see something, it'll kind of rattle around in my brain while I'm watching it, and I don't want that for people. So it's like if I can just give you general stuff and then you can figure out how you feel about it on your own, that's the best for me in my brain at least. But yeah, those are the classes, and just going through them again, Chris Pine's character didn't feel like he cast anything. Maybe he does, and maybe it is subtle.
That's why I said I want to double check that stat block to see what spells he has, because there are certain things like friends. Friends is intentionally not noticeable until afterwards.
Right.
So exactly. there are ways that this could be okay.
Yeah.
It just depends on what they gave him, and then I want to rewatch it to spot them.
But also, like, it's one of those things where at the time I was kind of annoyed that happened, but again, when I left and I was able to think about it, I was like, maybe that's just the way someone wanted to play him, right? Like, you can have someone at the table who's like, I don't really know much, but I'm going to help. So, like, I might not be comfortable with all the spells or whatever. So, in a way, my excuse for kind of getting over it was just thinking about it as, like, this is someone's table and that's just how they wanted to play it. Or maybe that's just how the character rolls or whatever it might be. It did seem like magic was far less common than most tables, right? Like, for the most part, I feel like in a D&D table, like, I feel like 75% of the team usually is like casters of some kind. And like this team,
only 25% of us understand that martial is where it's at.
Because martials are cool. I love martials, so I will never complain about that. But it seemed like, they had, obviously he was the bard character and he didn't really cast anything obvious. The sorcerer was like struggling the whole time, which was cool, and I kind of liked that idea too. And then the paladin, I know he cast while he was fighting. Because I'm pretty sure he did like holy weapon or something, and something came up, and I think that's it. Because like the druid also casts 0 spells, which I was surprised about, and like initially I was like a little annoyed, I think, but again, the more time I got to like kind of see it in action, like what she was doing instead, and I guess what they.
I think feel like part of it leans into what you're talking about watering down.
Yes.
And it does lean into something that is kind of an issue with 5e because all the players are pretty powerful compared to older editions in particular.
Yeah.
And there's usually at least one subclass to fit whatever niche you're going for within most of the classes. So there's going to be a version of every class that has some healing or some nature ability or some this. Right. So there's a lot of overlap. Yeah. Whereas this gave the sorcerer a chance to be different than the druid, who had a chance to be different than the barbarian and the bard. So I think that's partly to make it so they all needed each other more, which I think is something most parties could use.
Mm-hmm.
But also for the sake of just watering it down for just to make it more simplistic, and also I guess if you didn't know D&D, maybe you wouldn't care. Maybe you're going in, there's going to be a fantasy movie with magic, but also you're coming in, why has everybody got magic but her?
Right, yeah, exactly. It's just like literally everyone can cast spells except for the barbarian. And I think it's exactly what we're saying is like it needed to be digestible to someone who doesn't really understand. And druids are one of the most complicated classes in D&D. Like they have crazy spells and then they can transform on top of that and then whatever their subclass gives them as well. So I can understand why they're like, let's not. On top of that, it turns into that kind of question of like, how do you narratively get around like spell slots and stuff of like, well, can't cast that again today. So I've seen other franchises or whatever kind of handle it in different ways. And actually Legends of Vox Machina, I think they did a good job of kind of being like, I'm out. This is all I got. Like goddess only gives so much, so I think it's an easier way for them to kind of work around that as well. But in general, like I don't know if it is, I mean, everyone knows that she turns into an owlbear. And I was like definitely kind of confused about that, I guess, just because I was like, how in the hell are they gonna talk about that, or is that just gonna be like, that's cool?
I realized the day after I watched the movie, they're not playing 5e. They're playing 1D&D. You could be an owlbear in 1D&D. Like it was the one thing that I was like, that's like the most egregious rule thing I can think of. And then just the next day I was like, holy shit, wait a minute, let me go double check some stuff.
Yeah.
You can just do that. It's the upside to, I'm not going to get into commentary on what I think of the new druid rules they released, but it's the upside to them, which I don't think there are a lot of upside. But you can be an owlbear.
You could be an owlbear. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Now that
occurred to me, and I mean, who knows? I haven't looked at the 1D&D spells to know if bards just don't have spells. They definitely do. 1D&D.
Yeah, no, I'm quite sure they do. And again, like the druid didn't have any, and this is like slightly spoilery. But I already kind of mentioned that like the druid doesn't.
Let me just do this.
There we go.
It's far too zoomed in, but it's Poil time.
Spoiler alert!
Poil owl.
Just a little spoiler alert here. Like the druid doesn't cast any spells, but she also seems to shapeshift an infinite amount of times.
That was the other thing. You can do that in 1D&D.
Infinite?
I was double checking the wording, and I don't think there's anything that says you have to pick the same shape throughout your wild shape. And because in the new 1D&D, mechanically, you have one garbage stat block, so your animal choice is irrelevant because it's all just imagination. Who cares if you're a deer or a snake or a hedgehog or a wolf? They're all mechanically identical. Yeah. So the part where you can just imagine that is very cool. I will give them that. The imagination part is cool. I want the choice to matter. I want the choice to matter. Give me stat blocks for animals so it makes sense. But
yes, I agree.
The fact that she was going in and out of different shapes does fit within 1D&D. Even the bit where she went out and then back in, because you could do that at high level in 1D&D.
In my brain, I honestly thought that like this was like some homebrew thing where they were like, we're going to take away all your spells, but you can change as much as you fucking want. And that was also part of the reason why I was like, I got over it over time. Because I was like, if you look at it in a, if you're just kind of bending it to do something else that you want.
That was my initial thought, was just rule of cool.
Right, exactly. And well, they also like, it seemed to make it so that was kind of expected of her kind of druid, because they kept saying like, we're looking for the wild shape, or like it's a wild shape, it's whatever. So it almost, in my mind, I was almost like, this is like the subclass, I guess, which is just
it was something I had to get used to, is that they would just throw out D&D terms.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I've played in various setups at tables, but I feel like most of the time I'm not playing a setting where it's like, oh, do you have this spell? Like people just know what spells are, which spells are what. But
exactly. And I guess for that particular situation, like it was known enough in that world to just be like, there are some people who can turn into animals, and that's what we need.
Yeah, why not?
So I had assumed that it was something kind of like in that sense where it was like that's her subclass, and she's known for that because it is a very specific kind. And that's why I was like, she's a druid with no spells and mad wild shapes. Let's go.
That's actually what made me realize it was 1D&D. At least I think that's what's happening. Someone at Wizards would have to confirm it for us. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, the wild shape happened too frequently. But I remembered at level it's literally level 20. It's the capstone ability. You can do that and just be wild shape forever in 5e. So I was like, maybe they're high level, and I realized because some of the spells being thrown around, they're fighting at least a 17th level wizard as their opponent. High level,
for sure.
So for them to be reasonably capable of taking that on, they got to be decently high level.
Yeah.
So I started looking to see when that was, and then that's when it made me think, well, hold on a minute, 1D&D. So I don't know how high level they're supposed to be in theory, but
I didn't take them as like super high level, to be honest.
I mean, their backstory that they established has them doing some adventures.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're all like petty little adventures, they could still be level like 5 and just kind of dicking around at like low level stuff. Because like most of the adventures they were talking about, they weren't doing wildly like life danger altering kind of things.
I mean, Chris Pine was.
Was he?
I mean, we are firmly in spoiler territory. I changed the background. It is now, and no, I'm happy to go into it. I'm just making it a formal announcement. For anybody who wants to have secrets when they go to see it. Now is the time to leave, and we won't judge you.
Yes.
So, in the Bard's backstory, official spoilers, he was part of an organization, and it shows him bringing in a Red Wizard of Thay, who is a real tough enemy. Like that sets up like the MacGuffin for the whole plot.
Right.
So for him to be able to bring one of those in, he had to be some serious ability.
I fully thought that it was like they did some crafty shit with their team, and like honestly in my brain I thought of one of those like shitty little like Looney Tunes tricks where they're like, we just pulled out the string and the box fell on him and we got him. like I really didn't think that there was a showdown and they brought them in, but that's a good point. Like that could have been what it was.
I think what drags it down, and when I realized how high level they probably should be, as much as I like, the sorcerer has his like confidence arc where he's like, I don't really believe in myself. Like that doesn't hit as well if you're level 15 plus. Like how do you not? Honestly, but whatever, he could still just be low self-esteem. It was a good arc. It was fun to watch, but I think they're reasonably high level because he had at least 5th level spells.
The sorcerer. Yes.
You know, it might have been at least 4th level. I don't remember.
I think he did. Oh shoot, hold on. Let me double check before I embarrass myself. But there's a bunch of different spells they did, which also in general, it was really really cool from like a nerd perspective to see them using like spells that we could recognize, but they weren't like magic hand or something. Like I was so worried that that was gonna happen with the spells. Like they weren't over and annoying about it, but if you knew what to look for and like, you know, you're just familiar with some of the spells, you're like, oh cool.
No, there was a handful of spells that they called out, like time stop got called out. They recognized it being cast, like, oh no, she's doing this, but the wizard didn't. She didn't say, I'm going to be casting time stop. It just didn't happen. So it was, the magic's recognizable in the setting of the movie. So that's its own thing. But visually, it was very cool because there were quite a few of them and I was very happy to see them.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anything else like non-spoiler that we can get into before we do like full hard?
Full.
I'm trying to consider because we talked about the classes and how they represent. Oh, actually, there was something I do want to talk about in terms of Holga as well, because she's like the barbarian or whatever. But I was hoping that we didn't really get to see like a moment of rage. I guess like rage is never like explicitly shown.
I think it was there, but as I left, I was like, how do you visually show that? They just made her kind of angry. In general, basically she just was a badass when she needed to be.
Correct. And like also she was great. I have no complaints about like the character or like the actors or everything. Like it was great. It was a wonderful time. I think I just wanted to have a moment where like you could see her ascend to like battle rage mode essentially. Like she's making noises and like maybe just like drooling a little bit or something, like she's there fighting, but like her mind is clearly in like I'm in happy fight violent mode right now. I am not like a lucid person who's just like, because like a lot of the also just in general the fight choreography fucking A plus.
On point.
It was wonderful. Like the whole movie, it was all great. So that was really really cool. But like with her choreography, I think a lot of it felt really like really clean in some ways. Like when they were busting out when they were tied up, you kind of see it in the trailer. So that's why I'm fine talking about it. But like there, it did feel a little more rough and tumble. Like she's just throwing people and she's getting thrown around too. But there's a fight later on that happens where it felt like she was, I don't know, like very kind of logical about everything, which is cool. It's a cool fight thing. I'm like, it's a weird thing to complain about. I hear it coming out of my mouth and I'm like, it's weird to complain about it, but I almost wish there was something more like feral almost. And that would be kind of the way you had to represent it. And you know, we wouldn't need like a slow zoom in on her face going like or anything. Like I don't need that, but I just kind of wish there was more of a like I'm in battle mode right now. Just I don't know, visually in some way, or even you know audibly if she's making some crazy animal noises while she's fighting. Yeah, exactly. I don't necessarily need that face, but.
No, I was trying to think about it. That's one of the things I want to watch for again. I want to see if there's some spells that might have just been overly subtle for the bard. And I want to see if I can catch what moment might have been a barbarian rage. Because other than doing like a vein popping and yelling, I was like, what would signify it to me? I think the best signal that I could think of that you could visually do would be just shrugging off like a stupid heavy hit. And I can't think of one off the top of my head, but maybe rewatching it, that's one of the things I'm going to look for is if there's just a moment where it's like there's zero chance you're getting back up and then you do anyway because you're a barbarian, damn it.
Yeah. I like that. I would have, I don't know if anything happened like that, but
no, I can't point to anything without, that's one of the things I'm gonna go back in looking for, but
yeah,
that one when I saw they had a barbarian, like that's gonna be hard to visually.
Yeah. I agree. I also like just seeing the way some people played barbarians as well, which is, you know, that's one of the coolest things about this community is also like seeing what's out there and seeing how like really creative players bring different ideas to the table. But there was one barbarian I saw that like when they raged, it was like a gleeful rage. Like it wasn't just full mad. It was like, yes, you know, like I'm in kind of thing. And it reminded me that like rage in general is just a heightened emotion, right? Like it's a heightened anger. And like the way that player played it was that it was like a heightened, you know, glee, a happiness of some kind. Like there's still violence, of course, but like that was just the heightened emotion. So in my mind, I was like, any kind of heightened emotion, like regardless of what that might be. And like in my mind, I was like, it might be cool to play someone who might have like the opposite reaction where like it is still rage, but maybe it's like a fear. It's like an intense fight or flight that they hit. And it's just like, I'm going to hit real hard, but it's because I'm in a corner and I'm scared. So in that sense, that could have also been maybe some way of displaying it where like, she's no longer a logical individual. She's just a heightened emotional, whatever that might be. And I realize that could be a stereotype of like heightened lady is hysterical, but not that. Just a different form of rage, I guess.
Maybe the first introduction to her, it's like the only fight I can think of that has overtly like I have a reason to be pissed off tied to it.
yeah. I don't.
But it's hardly felt like rage.
Exactly, and I think that was my complaint is that like it didn't feel like rage.
No.
But again, as we said, it's tough for them to kind of straddle that. Everyone needs to get it. And the super nerds who are like, where's my rule on page 75 of the barbarian handbook? You know, like you have to kind of get somewhere in between.
There's like I don't know if it's a trope. There are certain things that are like qualified tropes. I'm sure there's resources to tell me what things are tropes. But I'm just picturing a moment that I can vaguely picture in multiple movies where you see like the hand clench before someone strikes out. Yeah. Like if you had seen like a grip on an axe and just like visibly see muscles get a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
That might have been enough. It's again, there's so many ways you could have done it and it's hard to do.
Yes, exactly. But in general, again, like she was a fun character. I think what they did, the choreography was awesome. I think the paladin scene.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, so good. Actually, when it ended, I was like, I bet Joe's a happy man right now. He's getting good representation.
I was very satisfied with the paladin.
Yeah.
My only, again, spoiler territory, my only complaint with the paladin is that he wasn't on screen long enough.
I'm fucking 100%. Oh my god. I think I remember leaning over to Dubs. Oh well, let's just go full spoilers at this point.
Full spoilers.
We're struggling in this.
In the interest of spoilers.
Straight spoilers. As soon as he like walked away, I was like, did they really just get rid of the best character right now? Like
100%.
He's the best.
100%.
And not even only in terms of like what he does and like the cool combat stuff, but like he was really cool bouncing off the other characters. Like they got fun ways to interact with him too, and like he was just great. I thought he was
just a badass start to finish. He was just dope, visually cool, great fight scene, kick-ass weapon. He provided like a moral bouncing sounding board for them to just like point out this thing. He had the thing that's funny, speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, about Drax, where he doesn't get like idioms and things, but it wasn't his whole identity. It just happened once or twice and it was silly, and then we went right back to Serious Town. And real good.
They also made him like smile and like, you know, feel joy as well, because a lot of times if they do that stereotype, it's just like, I'm serious all the time and blah blah blah. Like, you know, he was kind of smiling or cracking up every now and then too, and I was like, this is great. And in zero worlds did I expect myself to love the fucking paladin the most.
Well, you should expect it in every world. Paladins for life. I'm just thinking about it now because I was like, his backstory was very cool too. Thinking about it, I'm pretty sure all of them, with the possible exception of the sorcerer, had a very edgelordy backstory to a degree.
For sure, but I think that's part of the reason, right? Like, I don't know if you know about the like stereotype, but I was like, oh yes, we have to fridge the wife, of course, to make sure that, you know, Chris Pine's character has a reason for doing stuff and blah blah blah. But actually, going back to the beginning and kind of going over the movie, almost not step by step, but just kind of the intro. The escape was the most D&D shit I've ever seen.
Oh,
like on
good.
The screen, like a fucking terrible plan. With like a 4% chance of working, and like just like the whole escape was, I don't know, it was hilarious to me, because even as they were like busting out, one of them was like, we accepted your pardon, or we approved of your whatever it was.
They like, didn't even need the plan.
Out. And I was like, that is the most D&D energy I've seen in a movie ever. Where it's like,
so
this is our complicated plan.
And it was such a clever way of providing a flashback backstory.
Yeah, exactly.
Just reading off his like, this is why you should pardon us, and then constantly cutting back in because they needed the linchpin of the plan.
And then just fucking, oh my god, no, I was absolutely cracking up. Although also in terms of that and the plan, like just for full spoilers, the plan was to basically force the Aarakocra to fly them out from the top of that tower or whatever, and to get as far away as possible before they could like run away, essentially. And the Aarakocra, I had very mixed feelings about the like animatronic / puppetry and things that they did with it. I was glad that it wasn't CGI town. I was very happy that they leaned into something else, just because that stuff looks dated immediately, and they have plenty of other opportunities to do that, whatever. But for them, and then like they did it later on with the Tabaxi as well, I just thought it felt a little like Jim Henson-y, and like not in a great way.
I'll have to go back and look, because nothing felt off to me. I was just like, cool, Aarakocra, but it's possible watching with fresh eyes, I'll catch what you're talking about.
Yeah, it just felt really like stiff and weird. Like it took me out because I recognized that it was an error, like what they were doing. And, you know, like if you can see the framing of artwork, essentially, it's like that ruins it, essentially. You don't want to know or see how it works. You don't want it to kind of pull you out. And for me, it did. But I'm also like a very visual person. It's literally my job. So like I might be staring at details that are not great. But like even the way it kind of like blinked and the way it moved its head, it just felt very stiff to me. And I've seen other sort of live action-y things where they use puppetry or whatever it might be. Like I think one of the ones that I still love to this day is in the first Hellboy, that like creature in the subway. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh yeah.
That was all like puppetry and like costuming and stuff, and it was fucking incredible. And it's still
I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, and so like there are things where you can still have animatronics and whatever, but like you can still make it look really natural. And I didn't know if they meant to do that to kind of keep it in that campy sort of like, we're going for this look, or if it was just the best they could do at the time or whatever. But it looked weird for me.
See, it didn't to me, but there's just an interesting on just the human condition, because I am not a very visual person.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate. See, I say that, and I'm about to tell you how much I appreciate having like a map in D&D or reference art or things like that to be able to see things.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm more auditory than I am visual, and I have internet armchair therapy diagnosed myself with aphantasia. And it's hard to do because I don't know what other people's inside of their brain looks like.
Yeah,
For me,
yeah.
The best way I've been able to describe it, if I try and picture something, I have a flash of almost an image behind my eyes where I can't actually see it, but I know what it looks like. It's very strange. So I don't know if other people can actually like see a thing in their head. So I don't know if I'm just seeing a thing that sounds familiar and attaching an identity to it, and it's not really true, or if I actually have a thing. Point being, the best example I can ever have is I watched, way off topic of D&D, Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along blog, which is a hilarious little show. But I finished watching it, and everybody else was in a more somber mood, and I was like, oh, yeah. And he's like, did you not realize how like shattered he was at the end? I was like, what are you talking about? And then when I listened to the soundtrack, just hearing the music hit at the end, was like, oh, this was a very sad ending.
Yeah.
I was distracted by things in front of my eyes.
Huh. Wow. Yeah. So that might have been.
Much could be, because you're right. Thinking back on it, the framing, you could kind of see where it was going.
Yeah.
I did not expect it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I will also say I'm 100% the picky visual person who's like, try and make it look as good as possible. But when I was talking to Dubs about it, when we finished seeing it, he was like, no, it didn't bother me. And I was like, yeah, that's why I'm like, I'm fairly certain it's me. I'm fairly certain I'm the problem, and that's okay. But yeah, I thought that the escape was really, really, I think, a really good representation of the spirit of D&D, and then also, I don't know, like a fun is exactly what you said, like a clever way to be able to get the backstory in without it being awkward or very much like sit down and let's talk about me. One thing I will say, I didn't realize that one of the lady, I think there was only one lady there, was like a halfling or a gnome or something like that, until later on. She shows up again, and I was like, oh. And like that's one thing I think they really struggled with was scale, because the Holga's ex or whatever, I don't know if he was a halfling or a gnome. I couldn't tell.
He's a halfling.
But they literally just shrunk him down, and that made me so mad, because halfling.
What is a halfling if not a short person?
They have different like body structure and stuff. Like their heads are larger. They're not just like a small.
I mean, I've watched Lord of the Rings. They're basically small people.
They definitely did some like goofy stuff, like tricks of the camera or whatever, to also make them feel more like stout and wider and whatever. Like they're not.
Frodo's a skinny bitch. For the most part, halflings are people that are small and have big feet. To me, that I didn't have an issue with. A gnome, I think, has its own. Like there are certain differences between a halfling and a gnome, but a halfling, I would say, could pass for a human if they weren't so small.
I from all of my history and all that stuff, like halflings and hobbits have different proportions. They are smaller, but they have larger heads and kind of like bigger hands and whatever. Like, so they're not just.
Now I want to know where you're getting your lore. Halflings are based on hobbits, and that's Tolkien, and Tolkien just makes them small.
If you look at the old artwork for them, especially, they're definitely not just like.
Okay, but if you look at the description, see, this is coming back to visual description.
We're gonna have to go read that.
Words and sounds. So
if
you read them, they're just small. They like to eat, so a lot of them are fat. They got big old hairy feet.
That, of course, they're all fat. That thing they did get correct, but in general. I also didn't like that they literally just like shrunk him down, for not only because in my brain the proportions were different from whatever I had seen, but it was also like very obvious and awkward because I forgot the character or whatever, he was a very like hyper textualized person in this space, like super detailed, because they literally like just took that resolution and just made it smaller, so it's going to make him look really, really detailed, and then everyone else around him will not match that, so like he just doesn't match the setting essentially. So I was hoping. Sorry, good?
No, just conscious again the things we see, because I was like, oh look, he's small.
Yeah, exactly. Because for me, I'm like, the resolution doesn't match the rest of the screen. So it's gonna bother me, because I have an eye for these things because it's literally part of my job and all that. But like I didn't like that, and I was kind of hoping they would just do the camera tricks as well, because there were times where when Holga was speaking to him, it really just, they were not looking at each other at all. You could like just
not that I noticed, but the practical effects in Lord of the Rings to make the Hobbit smaller really do pay off.
Yes.
So I think this movie could benefit from the same camera trickery.
Yeah, exactly. And also, this is also to say, like, you know, don't freaking, I didn't like hate on it. It's just more things that like I noticed initially, and I was like, oh, that's strange. Like that was a weird just like choice, I guess. But again, like it was fine, and it once I kind of got over it, I was like, all right, it's fine. That's just how it looks, and we'll get over it that way. But yeah, so they have that hilarious escape, and they make it out and kind of start piecing together what the like journey's going to be, which is like getting his daughter back and finding, oh god, what is his name?
Forge.
Thank you. That was his name. Yes. Their old buddy who apparently became, was it like the Lord?
He was the Lord of Neverwinter.
Yeah, the Lord of Neverwinter. And I have to say, I think they brought the city to life in a very cool way. I thought that felt really like natural and lived in, and it looked good. I think it looked really, really good.
I think it looked good too. Also, there was something exciting just hearing him say Baldur's Gate. I was like, I know that place.
Yeah.
Like, so there is a lot of just, I know D&D, so this is nostalgic. My God, the title screen when it came up with that map, I was like, I know that place, and I know that place, and I know this place.
Yep, it was actually, Debs leaned over and was just like, is that a map we know? I'm like, yes, that's the sword. We hang out in that. All right, don't worry about it. Poor Dubs. He was just minding his own business, and then I was like, you want to play D&D with my brothers and me? And he got roped in. But yeah, exactly that. The intro with the map was really, really cool, and hearing the references was really awesome too, and like the various references to the locations and lore and everything else that was going on was awesome. And then they eventually kind of meet the sorcerer because they need help, and they're like, I know a sorcerer essentially, and that's when they meet him, and I forgot his name again. Simon. I did it on my own.
You did.
So, one thing, okay, I didn't think too much about it until now when it popped back into my head, because he's doing some like charlatan kind of, here's my magic trick, but I'm also stealing everyone's shit. How was he stealing everyone's stuff? Because my brain was trying to be like, what spell is that? Because it was like in a,
I mean, you could argue
ball.
Mage Hand or maybe telekinesis.
I thought it might have been Mage Hand, but like there was a ball of it floating, and then there were other pieces coming to it. So, and the ball of like everything else that was collected was still moving as other things were being flipped out. So I was like, I don't know what this is. I couldn't put it to a spell when I was watching it.
Maybe telekinesis, but that also might have been like, this serves the plot, so magic.
Yeah, I honestly thought that that's kind of what the, I don't want to say excuse, but like that's what it was. It's like, he's a sorcerer, magic. But I just couldn't recognize any kind of obvious spell, I guess, is where I was going with. And then they had him have a magic or wild magic effect while they were there. I don't remember what set it off though. Was it like, did he cast another spell, or was it because he
tried to do one spell and did another one? I don't remember.
I
don't remember what the first spell was attempting to be. He ended up casting like reverse gravity, but
right, exactly. But I can't remember what triggered that. But that was cool to see. And again, like it's something that just watching it, you're like, that's weird, but cool. But for others watching it, like for anyone who knows the rules, I think it's a cool moment for, you know, you to be like, oh, he's a wild magic sorcerer and shit got fucked. So that was really cool. And forgot he did something else there that I wanted to talk about. Well, he was.
He definitely prestidigitationed.
Yes. Oh, that's what it was. When he was doing his little like cantrips and stuff, the fresh cut grass was the like call out to Critical Role in the new character in the third season, which is called Fresh Cut Grass, because they said it like 4 times, and I was like, how often are they gonna try and say that?
I didn't even remember that was a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just like, okay, I get it. It's prestidigitation.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for saying that. That was the only way I remembered. But yeah, so they collect him, and then they're like, we need a wild shape because we need to go like spy. I think they were able to like get into.
Yes,
like,
they needed to scout it out, but you couldn't scout it out because there's guards everywhere. So you got to have somebody to be a fly on the wall. See, wizards who is definitely watching this, we want to have a tiny wild shape.
Tiny, yes.
I watched you do a little breakdown where you were like, hey, but you can't be a squirrel in combat. Ain't nobody wanted to be.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's
and if they did, they were wrong.
Yeah. And I have to say, like, I also was very happy that that was represented in the the movie, of the idea of like, so many times wild shape is used as the like, I'm just a rabbit, don't mind me, I'm just gonna look at some shit or do something. So I love that was like the main, I guess, source of it, other than she's an owl bear and she can whoop ass, which was cool too. But I'm very glad that they made that a big part of the wild shape, because I feel like that's where a lot of player creativity like shines, I think. So it was nice.
I think it was good, which is why I'm shocked that they were taking it away. They understand it was so good that they put it in the movie. Anyway, I'm not salty.
Rule of cool. That's what most of the movie really feels like anyway. But yeah.
No, I'm saying it worked great in the movie. I'm saying in one D&D they're ruining it. But yes, rule of cool throughout the movie was good.
Correct.
Yeah, they went in and figured out that they needed the MacGuffin. That's what they found out.
Correct.
The helmet of MacGuffin.
When she went in, though, it definitely like startled me when the wizard lady was like, "There's a wild shape in the room." I was like, "How the fuck? How did you know? what sense do you have that gave you that?" And that was also, again, like, I needed to turn off my D&D brain, because I was like, I don't know if there's anything other than like an anti-magic thing, in which case she would just pop out, not like I could sense that bitch. So I was like, how the hell?
Detect magic.
Yeah, okay. She just has a detect magic going at all times.
For the purposes of that meeting with other people, maybe detecting magic to make sure, especially because she was in disguise the whole time. There's enough reason for her to be catch and detect magic. What threw me off there is that she just went, "Oh, hello.
We just got raided."
Fair warning, we are talking about the D&D movie because we saw it early, and there are spoilers galore.
We are, yes. Hello. Thank you so much for dropping by and raiding. Oh my god, since I was lurking on your channel, and because of that, it technically thinks that I'm a raider from your. So when I commented, it even said like raider from Carpe. I'm like, I am. I had both tabs open. It's good. But yes, thank you for dropping by. If you can't tell by
that's why I wanted to stop.
We did our non-spoiler kind of chat, so if you need to go, feel free. VODs are a thing. You can always come back for the VOD.
You know what I'll do? I'm gonna bring it back to a question I thought of when we mentioned it for not D&D movie, to give people a chance to not get spoiled if they need to leave.
Yes.
So again, spoilers will be happening, so leave if you need to. We won't blame you. But we talked about demonstrating rage at the table.
Yes.
I know you're playing at least one barbarian currently. Is there a way of demonstrating your rage other than angry that you have done that you particularly liked?
I think for Revaya especially, like, she's not a very talkative person. So when I thought about her rage, I thought about it more of like a seething, like she's hit like a focus, where she almost like recedes back into her mind. And like, it's like her normal personality is still there, but it's very muted to her at the time. So for her, the way I kind of display her rage is just that, like, she gets quiet and is very like clenched teeth the whole time, and is just kind of like a fighter in that situation and nothing else. So that's for me how I do it. But hi Carpe, how's it going? We're talking spoilers for the Dungeons and Dragons movie, but currently we're talking about ways to display I guess, barbarian rages and kind of the creativity that can come from that. Actually, not me, but one of the ones that when we were playing in person before times, before COVID came, Dubs
Land before
had
time.
exactly the land before time. Dubs had a warforged barbarian, and the way we played it was that he was just overclocking himself. So
Oh, that's fun.
it was the same, person essentially. Like he would still interact the same way, but you would just hear all the gears and everything, and just go like, and then that was kind of the way we represented it, I guess. So yeah, like I think there are kind of fun, different takes on it that can be more than just like, I'm so mad. But yeah, that's part of the reason why I wanted it from her, because I was like, I do want to see that, because I love me some barbarian rage. I think everybody kind of loves barbarian rage.
Yeah, the sixth character I built for a possible appearance in Nenner's campaign, I built a barbarian fighter.
Oh shit!
I don't even know how his rage would go. I built the mechanics. I haven't fleshed it out as a person yet, but
yeah.
This was after I finally gave in to the propaganda and made a paladin. That was my fifth character. But
the propaganda.
That being said, though, speaking of ways to show rage, the character I had ready to go as a concept before I started making a million characters for no reason is a barbarian monk, which is a concept I've only gotten to play for a short time, and I didn't get to pan it out. But it's a drunken monk, because it's the best kind of monk. So rage is just to stumble forward, take a giant swig from the keg you carry at all times, belch, and now you're there. You're raged.
I love that very much. Also, this is super late, but I should have shouted out Carpe. Carpe's awesome. If you're not following him already, which I imagine everyone who came from already is, but he's amazing. I think I found him by accident on like Twitter because he was talking about D&D stuff, and I was like, this seems cool. Caught some of his streams, and he's great. So he's interviewed a bunch of my friends too. He's interviewed me and Nenners. He did Insomnia Night tonight, and Insomnia is awesome as well. And I'm pretty sure Insomnia is live tonight later on anyway. So check him out too, if you're not, which I imagine most people who are here are. But just shout out to those two because they're amazing, and we love them. And again, thank you for the raid as a late reaction. But yeah, speaking of rages and stuff, I guess we can hop back into spoilers because
yes, we're back in spoiler land. I think we've given them time to leave if they needed to.
Correct. We talked about the sorcerer a little bit.
I think we had left off trying to. No, it was when the druid got in. We're talking about getting like the wizard being like wild shaper. What threw me off was just the fact that, again, some of the notes they had to be like, "This is Dungeons and Dragons," okay?
Yeah.
By referring to spells and abilities, so it's like, would you say there's a wild shaper?
Yeah,
a spy. There's someone in the room. There's a druid. There's so many ways to say that, but a wild shaper.
Yeah, exactly. It shocked me, and also the thing that I thought about, in terms of like detecting her as well, is that pretty much anything that detects something, like even to detect magic, or even the like, the paladin's divine sense, which also came up, and that was really cool. But where it is, and I think that's why it surprised me, because she was like, "There's one around," and then she was like, "Where is it?" And I was like, "So it's there, but you don't know where it is? Like, what kooky sense do you have that allows you to know?" But again, like that scene was cool, the way it kind of played out, and the escape of her, shape-shifting and a bunch of different things were cool. And my brain, again, like I had to turn off the D&D brain for a second when she was running away, because she was running away as various animals, and I was like, your AC is 10. One of those guards could throw their boot at you and you're popped out.
Like, again, one D&D. I'm pretty sure they're using one D&D druid rules for the movie, and your AC is much, 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 much higher in one D&D. Because you don't have the extended health pool, and it's bad. But it was cool for the purpose of shape shifting over and over again. But no, all of my problems with the druid are solved by me going, it's not 5e. It's not 5e, though.
Yeah.
So who knows if that's right, but it's what makes it work in my brain.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, even for her, like, in general, I do feel like a rat or something like skittery is hard to hit. So a lot of the times when they have the base AC of 10, I'm like, I don't think a rat is as easy as it is to hit like a regular grown man. Like, that's a harder thing to do.
No, it's interesting because with like big ass monsters, they're like, yeah, they have a low AC. How could you miss? It's broad as a barn. I'm like, yeah, but the inverse that logic.
Correct. Rat. This little thing should be kind of hard, especially if it's fucking running, like that's a harder target to hit. So I wasn't mad because, a rat has a 10 AC and everyone's missing. How the fuck? It was more like, yeah, I
No, it's
that
I
makes sense.
agree. Rules wise, you're like, how though?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, they're probably just city guards. What's the stat block on a town guard? Probably got shit to hit.
They probably do, but again, if it has a 10 AC, they maybe
Nenners was running he's the Nenners DM.
That's the excuse. It's just Nenners with garbage rolls the whole time. Oh god, that's amazing. Nenners, if you ever watch this, we love you, but you roll like trash. Especially when you're the DM. But anyway, yeah, that took a second for me to get over, but I did eventually. I also thought it was kind of interesting the way she had that like slingy thing like attached to her arm, so she could
she just had a sling that was like a slingshot on her arm bracer, which I guess they're just like, yeah, we gave her a sling, but we're gonna call it this.
Yeah, although I was also surprised that like she even had one, because it's like, if you can just shapeshift infinitely, why would you even bother? Like, just turn into a deer and kick his face off or something, like you don't need to worry about it.
That's the thing. The ability says shapeshift except when convenient for story. So
right. There you go.
Sometimes someone was like, wouldn't it be neat if you had a slingshot? Somebody said that would be neat. So they had to put it in the movie somewhere.
Because in my mind, like, I hate wearing jewelry. Like, because most of the time, like, if in my mind, it always gets stuck on, not in my mind, it genuinely gets stuck on things. Like, I'm always reaching into something, and then, like, if a bracelet or something gets stuck, I'm like, get off the team, you're off. You're fucking me up. So having this thing, like, this hook just hanging out on your forearm, my stupid brain was like, you must get caught on all kinds of things. Do you just, like, get stuck in doorways or whatever? You're a druid, so there's probably not a lot of doorways. But, like, I imagine that's inconvenient, but I thought it was
like,
cool.
I agree. Impractical.
Yeah, exactly. But like as a flavor thing for a weapon, I thought that was
nifty.
Cool, yeah. And then shortly after they kind of do all that, I think Elminster loves cheese. The Dungeoneers. I really like that name. That's very cool. But hello. We're talking spoilers, so again, we don't feel bad if anyone needs to get out of here if they don't want anything spoiled. So after that, the scene that they released in like a short clip to be viewed everywhere, so I'm actually not terribly upset about talking about this in spoilers, was the Speak with Dead scene where they're talking to all the dead guys. Just because it felt very D&D for many reasons, but from like a third person like just pulling and zooming out of this scene from a macro, that's what I'm looking for here. I loved that to get information for their quest, this was the only way they could figure some stuff out, right? It's like, well, we gotta go talk to dead bodies. Let's go. So I
appreciated that they had to talk to like a stupid number to get anything useful. Because my personal pet peeves, among my least favorite spells are Speak with Dead and Speak with Animals. Mostly because most of the times I've seen them on a character, it's like, well, I'm gonna use this as the problem solver for everything. Yeah. What that's saying is when your tool is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe don't use Speak with Dead or Speak with Animals for all problems, because it turns out corpses and animals only know so much.
Yeah.
And you drag the game down, slow it, wait. I'm gonna get off my soapbox. They're fine if you use like seasoning. You don't want to overdo it. Yeah. But it was quite funny. It used the spell in a fun way.
Yes.
It broke the rules on it for comedy, but it was fine. It worked for comedy.
100%. Yeah. Especially like with, again, the spoiler. Because there's one that like at the end is like, can you ask me another question? And was waiting there. And I was like, that spell has a timer.
It was my immediate thought. I mean,
you can't just hang out and leave a dead guy. But again, it's for comedy and it was fun. And like, I wasn't mad about it at all. And like initially, again, I had a moment where I had to turn off my D&D brain because they were asking so many that I was like, how many spell slots do you have for this? Like that, it takes time and you got to cast for each one. Like you're going to be there for fucking the sun should be coming up. But also, again, turning off my D&D brain, just being like, he had like an item or something that.
Yeah, it sounded like it was an artifact he was using rather than a spell.
Right. And then at that point I was like, I just need to shut up about it because doesn't matter. It does not matter at this situation. But I loved, like, they used practical effects for them and it looked great. All of those dead guys looked awesome. So like that I really, really loved. And I think in that weird campy style that they did the like Tabaxi and even the Aarakocras in, like the sort of stiff awkwardness works for a dead guy. Obviously. So like if the dead skeleton is moving weird, it's like, yes.
Yeah. And that's part of circling back to why I was kind of okay with the tiefling be a subdued version. They had all the other stuff, so it's not like they were skimping on stuff that just made her thing. But I get it. It would have been cool to have like cloven hooves and red, maybe wings if they do feral tiefling. Like they could have done some other stuff with it, but
that was exactly the thing. I literally said to Dubs, I was like, I almost wish they just gave her hooves. If she was clip clomping around in every scene, that would be enough to be like, that's an irregular person. And I think it was again just because like they were very subtle with it. Like the ears and the horns were nearly covered by the hair, like entirely. And then the tail, just because of the way they were framing things, you didn't really see like at all, really. And it didn't come up for her with her, like she wasn't, you know, grabbing a cup with her tail as she was walking by or something like that. So that was one of the things I said. I was like, if you just did that, that's just a passive win. Just put shoes on the actress and you're done.
You know? I don't know. Maybe it's just me and I don't see through that lens, but I wasn't really focused on who was different and trying to make one group exiled. Obviously, the straight white man, I'm very woke and in touch with the struggles of all peoples. No.
Yeah.
No, you were talking about it earlier. I was like, man, it's one of those, it's not like, oh, now I feel bad, which is not what anyone's intention ever is when we're talking about these things. And the people who get super defensive are crazy because it's not about making you feel bad. It's about this is different. Because it was a privilege check. I just went, shit, I've never walked into a movie and had to worry about representation.
Yeah.
It's just such a crazy thing. And exactly. It's like, I'm glad it's to the point where like, it's for a long time now, like in commercials and movies and things, like, okay, they made a conscious effort to make this group that diverse.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
No.
And I notice it less and less. Last time I noticed it, I was like, you know what? This has just felt normal for a while now. And that's such a good thing.
Exactly that. And that was part of the reason I was happy with just even like the makeup of the group. And in a way, like there's something, this is just me on my soapbox again, kind of just complaining a little bit. And it's really not a big deal. It's just a Fooz. But one of the other complaints I usually have is obviously like tokenism isn't good when it's just like, these guys are all white and then we have one dude who's not. And then we're good. Like that's annoying too. Like make it organic, make it natural. Don't make them the one thing and make them the whole representation of that thing either. But the other complaint I get that I have pretty often is like when you have the main character being like whatever cis white man or woman, whatever it might be, and then everyone else around them is diverse, it feels really pandery because it feels like, oh, look at all these other colors that we have around here, so we're being inclusive. But you're not important enough to be the main character. That's still represented by the white people. By the white straight people. You can be on the sides though. You can be important on the sides, but you can't be in the center. So like that was something that in general I'm always like, oh, stop doing that. You know, like but I see less and less of it, so it's not too
I have to backtrack for a second because I made a joke saying that's how it should be, but because that didn't land and nobody laughed, I need to clarify that wasn't supposed to be. Hyperbole and not my true belief.
It's a joke.
No, and that's actually a good point in general. What makes this movie work is that they made a good ensemble film.
Yes.
The main arc was kind of mostly about the bard, but everyone else's plot was relevant, tied into the main plot. And I was like, yeah, this was the bard's arc in their overall campaign. Right. And they could have done that with anybody and it would have worked, but he didn't feel overtly more important.
Yes. And also I think a lot of them got time with like not overtly kind of talking about their backstories or their histories or something, but it just kind of came up in natural ways that again made them feel like they're a part of what's going on. They're not just like, what's his name's cheerleader or some shit, you know, it's not, you know, him and the whatever Bardettes or something on the sidelines. So
honestly, talking about the bard not having a lot of overt magic, that could have been a conscious decision as well. Like I didn't think about it at the time, but we talked about that. It could have been a conscious decision, but for other reasons, because he was the planner and like the face, the de facto leader. Yeah. And the main plot arguably was driven by his goal, even if everyone else is tied into a way that made it feel ensemble-y. But he didn't have shit to do when combat started.
Yeah. And
so he was absolutely not the bad.
Exactly. And in a way, like it's I think you were actually I heard it a little bit in Insomnia's interview on Carpe's before, and I'm a super believer in it. I know you are as well. That like I love ensembles because I love people need other people, right? Like there's no like one man army, and like if I'm in a group and I fail, I'm excited because that means my teammate can pull through and do something cool. So the idea that like you have a group that needs each other because they can't cover all the bases, and yeah, he's great at making the plans and talking the talk, but you know that dude comes in with a sword and he's like, Holga, please. You know, like that's a good dynamic, and it's fun to watch, and it also makes it so it's plausible that they're together. They're not tokenism. It's not just like you're here because you're here. And I thought about that as well, because I like bards are really versatile. So it could be an opportunity where he can do not everything, obviously, but if he has more utility other than being the face, which does take a decent amount of time, it gives the rest of the characters room to fill the space as well, I guess, is the long-winded
from just a movie making standpoint as well, because he's you know, the straight edge handsome leading man Hollywood figure, but at the same time you'd have to clarify him, I think, as comic relief.
Yeah.
And to have the leading man be comic relief while the badasses are around him is different.
Yeah, exactly.
And it worked.
Exactly. I thought it was like in terms of the group like coming together, I thought it was nice. I think in terms of backstory and being able to see other people's stories and such, obviously we got a good amount of his because it's central to the story. I did love the sorcerer's way of kind of dealing with his ancestor.
Yeah.
It was weird to see the way they did the attuning thing, because even when he was like, I can't attune, I was like, huh?
No, that hit my D&D ear wrong. I'm like, the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, like when they first said it, my brain stopped, because I was like, is that because there's like a sentient person, like as a sentient item that's like, no, fuck you, you're the wrong alignment or something, whatever, you know, whatever argument they want to say. That's what I first leapt to, because I thought that was maybe the angle they were taking. But they made it some kind of like, I don't know, special journey of some kind. And in a way, it still kind of broke my brain a little bit, just because they did have other magic items. Like, for example, he had that speak with dead thing. And maybe that's not attunement based, but that seems very strong to not be attuned. You could just hand a child of like whatever artifact he had to go talk to dead people. Like, in my mind, I was like, it seems like they have other attunement based things.
Maybe. I would agree that's powerful, but now think about it from a gameplay perspective. It's like, yeah, do I care about an attunement slot for a thing you arguably don't have a need for very often?
Yeah.
Like having to attune to speak with dead feels rough, but
yeah,
I would also maybe not let it be cast that frequently.
That's the thing. It's infinite speak with dead.
Yeah, I think I had to get over it by making it's like it's just part of him. Like it's not like he actually can't attune; he just doesn't believe in himself to the extreme.
Yeah.
So he's like, I can't even do nothing.
Yeah, because the way I think they even describe it like that. And, hey, Insomnia, what's up, man? I'm sorry, I didn't get to your whole interview because we're here, but I'm definitely gonna rewatch it. Probably tomorrow when I'm working. But it was awesome to see you and Carpe hanging out. We're talking spoiler stuff for the D&D movie, so if you haven't seen it, feel free to leave. But we got to see it last week as part of that AMC/Amazon Prime thing. So, but yeah, how's it going? Hope you're having a good night. We were just talking about the spoiler stuff, but oh yeah, the sorcerer and the tuning. Yes, no, we're still in spoilers.
All sorts of spoilers. So I mean, please stay and listen if you'd like, but also don't ruin it for yourself if it would ruin.
We're still in spoiler territory, girl. I'm just gonna type it just in case you're not listening to the sound, and I'm sorry.
No, there it is.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh god, sorry with one R, because apparently I can't type with a cat in my lap. Right, so talking about the attunement, and for him being the descendant of Elminster, if I remember correctly, which I thought was pretty cool. I'm hoping, you know, if anything like that comes up in the future, that it doesn't, I don't know, overpower what's going on, and just more in the sense of like Elminster story and stuff. I don't mind him being a descendant. That's fine. That's cool.
Yeah, sure. It was neat.
What'd you say?
I was agreeing. It was neat, especially to be the descendant of a wizard, but then be a wild sorcerer instead. You're not following in footsteps. It's just like, oh shit, I got this inborn thing.
Exactly, and I think that was like one of the cooler aspects. I think, because it's like if you're the descendant of like a fucking mystical wonder, and you're like, I don't study, but I kind of do it, and I can't control it.
I think it does help explain being higher level, but still with that confidence issue.
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
expectations people must have.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. But I think the way that they handled that, and even when he did get the item to finally work, and like attune to it, like it was an interesting take on it, because again, I can see that being like happening at a table, right?
Yeah.
Where like the DM's like roll of this, and they're just rolling garbage for
Yeah.
a long time. And then when they finally do, and they get to have that scene of like, it dissolves and the woo magic stuff, then it all works out. So it was a very different take that I didn't expect, but I thought it was cool the way they did it.
It was good. But see, now we're getting to the best part of the movie, because once
Yes.
they find out what the MacGuffin is and where it is, they got to go talk to the Paladin, and best character shows
Who
up
is
on
the best?
screen.
Like hands down the best.
So good.
Like personality wise, like the way he conducted himself, like he was on screen for, I don't know, what, like 30 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. It wasn't that long, but my God, did he steal the show? Like, holy crap.
If the camera had followed him away and then we just assumed the rest of the actual story, I'd been happy.
I would have been fine. 100%. Like, yeah, I genuinely was like, they just got rid of the best character and like just introduced him, and I'm sad.
It does also feel campaign-like, though, because you've got this 4-person party.
Yeah.
And for a lot of tables, 4s are kind of like the upper limit. 5, 6 gets too many.
Yeah.
But it depends on the group and what you're comfortable running. But it does kind of feel like, hey, my buddy's in town for the weekend. Can he join, roll up a character? Everyone's like, yeah, that'll be fun. And then he showed up, was awesome. But he's like, well, sorry, guys, I live in Florida. So
exactly.
I was here for the weekend, but maybe if I'm ever back.
Exactly. That also felt very much in the spirit of things. And I like his freaking the fight scene still is like my highlight for the movie, and also just the way he was using his abilities, because even the subtle divine sense thing when he was like sniffing, and I was like, he's doing some shit, I know what that is. And like that's the fun, I think, times for the nerds, right, when you're just like, I know what that very subtle thing that happened on the screen is. And I had
dope.
that with
his sword was dope.
the combat was cool, and in a way, like when I was first watching it again, the D&D brain I had to turn off in the first like 10-15 seconds of the combat, because he was like, I'll handle these guys, and then like walks up by himself, and I was like, imagine how long combat would take if just one dude decided to run up there and fight all these dudes. And then I was like, and if he's having just an okay time, you guys wouldn't take any pot shots or something, you would just wait.
That was one interesting thing, because most of the fighting, which was all well done, it was repeatedly basically one person versus a bunch.
Right.
Until basically at the end, which I get, it's like a small scale ensemble thing where you just here's each individual, now we're a team. But man, I was like, it's like, yeah, not one person's got an axe to throw to help this guy out.
What the fuck, Drew with her sling? I thought maybe one of them would be banged or something. And I think what also cracked me up about it was at the end when he killed all of them, he very much had to sort of like, we gotta go, because they don't stay dead. And in that sense, I was like, wouldn't you start the conversation with that? I mean, this was a really cool scene, but it seemed very strange that he was just like, look how cool I am. By the way, they're not dead. Let's go. But like, I love the scene enough to like not care, really, to be quite honest.
That was another thing, because they had the Deus Ex Machina that was the staff that could get them around.
Yeah. The hither something staff or something.
But that also, and a lot of the problems you might come over this movie, you're like, yeah, but imagine this happening at the table will so fix it. Because it's just like a DM who's like, well, they got to get across this bridge. Fuck me, they rolled in that one in the first hurdle. Yeah, that staff you've been carrying, it's like a thing.
Yeah,
you probably should use that.
It's a fucking crazy, like, powerful item too. And again, my brain was like, how would that not be an attunement staff? Like, how could you just pick that bitch up and just? But yeah, again, you have to turn that off because it's for fun. We're having a good time here. And again, the excuse of that's just the way that table rules it is like really kind of cooled down my jets whenever I was getting annoyed about things like that. And exactly that scene with the bridge, which is also in the trailer, so it's not terribly spoilery, but when he's like, oh, you have to step here and then do this and this and that, and he's laying out the whole thing, and then the sorcerer steps on one of them, was again a very D&D moment. It just felt very accurate to the feeling of like, not even like the rogue specifically, but one of them just being like, okay, we have to be very careful, and then someone just fucks up and you're like, this is the plan now, I guess. We'll figure it out. So that was cool. Oh, the chunky dragon.
Yeah, the chunky dragon. It was a little silly,
yes,
but it worked.
Yes,
it was still also a threatening dragon.
Yeah, and one thing I actually really liked about the representation of this dragon was the charging for the breath, essentially. Because I just took it as like it's just rolling 1s and 2s instead of that 6 that it needs to get that ability back. But it was cool to watch it like try, because I feel like if any DM is like, oh, let me see if I get that thing back at the start of my turn, and then I'll do whatever else I'm doing. So I like that they kind of represented that kind of cool down situation. But of course, rule of cool, I was like, the way they planned it so that they were like, oh, we have time until he gets his fire back. We can time that perfectly. You don't know when that's going off. You could have been telling him the plan and then just got roasted altogether. But thankfully, it all worked out for them, and that was fine.
Sure. I mean, based on the way they did it, if the DM was saying, like, you can see, like, these roiling gases after seeing him breathe fire once, clearly this is what he ignites, but it didn't come together. If he's narrating that 4 he rolled and the breath didn't recharge, then theoretically you could do that.
I see what you mean, right? So it's like, the next time we're ready now. I see. Yeah.
Because, like, in the moment of the movie, he's like, oh, I see flammable gases. Everybody duck. Yeah. And that was a very clever escape thing. My God, though. Ed getting hating on the paladin was so very good.
Yes, I fully agree. That's why I was, again, as we said earlier in like previous spoilery talk, spoiler free. Like, he was just fun to bounce off the other characters and to see how they were reacting to him as well. Because I feel like when he was around, like, suddenly he became the face, and like, the bard was just kind of like, I just don't like him. And everyone else is like, he's really cool though. And that felt kind of accurate to a lot of tables as well, where there's that fun kind of power dynamic, especially when speaking from like stats or whatever. Those are 2 charisma classes, right? So it's like they can both be the face, but like
it also ties into the idea that it was just a buddy was in town, he made a character. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna use the bard's backstory. You are these 2 things from the backstory that he's gonna hate.
Yeah.
So lean into it.
Yeah, exactly. That was really cool, and his backstory was really cool as well. I liked even the flashback for it was
and that again, it served the movie though, because it was again that point of like, we're gonna show you more about these characters. It was like, okay, we're setting up what happened to him so we can set up what the big bad's gonna do again later.
Yeah.
So it was
good,
twice over. Well done. Oh, his fight scene was so cool though. His sword that pulled out to be other swords.
Yes, so good. It was so good. It was like, I love the fight at the end, but I think that one took me so off guard that I was like, that was amazing.
It was so good. It was just pure martial goodness. And they were like, you know what? He's going to Divine Smite, but we're going to do it basically a little subtle, just a cool minor effect that you can go, that's what that is, but also just good choreography.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also part of the reason why I'm like, I would like to see it again, just so, because there are things that happen to you're like, damn, I want to see that again, because I was so amazed I wasn't watching. And like, that fight scene was definitely that for me. Like, it everything else I kind of like saw coming, but when he did the like, I'll handle them, I was like, all right, here we go. And like the rest of the choreography coming up to this was good still, but I guess I just expected more kind of like heavy, clunky, paladin-y, just like hack and slash, because they were pretty good about making the barbarians fighting style a lot like messier, I guess. Not super messy. Like I said, she was kind of tactical in some fights, but I was expecting a very rigid, kind of stale fighting style from him, and that is not what we got, and I was very happy to be wrong.
No, it was very nice to see. And man, the settings, because they're just on that chain suspended island on a river of mountains. The backdrop was very cool.
Super agree. Also, speaking of the dragon and like them escaping and stuff, for a second I thought that he was gonna like sacrifice himself when the bard was like, I think he was being sucked in or was stuck to him, like the dragon or something. I forgot what it was.
Oh, he was sliding back down like a there was a suspended bridge that was tilted back, so he was
sliding
towards
into him, and I think like I don't know, maybe his feet were against the mouth or something. Like he was like in a bad spot. And then they had that sick fucking pick shot of him just coming down with the sword, and I thought that was going to be him like stabbing the dragon. They both kind of fall off or something like that. So I was like, oh, are we losing? Oh no, he's fine. We're good.
No, it was good. I didn't expect that, but that would have been a reasonable thing to expect. I was surprised. I was like, oh, that's a very cool moment. All right, I guess we're just going to kill a dragon with a... Oh, no. Okay, the dragon can take that hit because it's a fucking dragon. Well done.
Exactly. That was the other thing I was worried about. Because, like, in that one scene when he was up in the air, I was like, he's going to sacrifice himself. Or he's going to, like, one-shot the dragon, which is going to kind of just take the teeth out of that scene entirely. And I'm glad that they didn't. Like, the way it played out was fine. I was not at all worried about it or complaining about it. But, yeah, at the time, I was like, oh, no. Oh, we're good. Don't worry. We're good. So that definitely played in that favor. And then unfortunately he leaves like right after that.
Yeah, no, he's like, I was the best character and now I'm gonna get out the movie because otherwise how are you gonna like anyone else?
Exactly. Now I gotta go because I'm clearly the coolest thing that's here.
Way too awesome.
Oh,
but that did lead into a good scene because it's been a lot of fun up to this point. The backstory is where most of the darkness is, but then they did get to a very nice just what are you guys doing on your long rest moment?
Yeah,
everybody around the campfire feeling real heavy.
Yeah, exactly. And it was nice to give it that space, not only from a storyline perspective, but again to kind of relate to the table aspect of it, right? Because that's usually what happens. Like a lot of times, depending on the table, of course, there are plenty of tables that are like, I'm here for the fight. So when we long rest, we just say we long rest, and then we keep going to the next fight, and that's fine. You play however you want. But in a lot of opportunities, if people have the chance to kind of chat with each other and take advantage of that, and also him struggling to attune is usually what people do during rest as well, where it's like, oh, we got this new thing, while we rest I'm going to take the time to attune to this item or whatever. So I like that they even made their downtime something that they're actively doing things, even if it's just chatting. So that was good stuff. I definitely appreciated that.
It was good, and I liked the his speech there, like the very Bard thing to do, bring everybody together, and then got to just turn into Ocean's 11 after that. Where it's like we gotta break into the vault, and that was I very much enjoy a heist, so I liked that aspect.
Yeah, they had a very clever way of doing. Oh my god, my theater and I lost our minds when they were in like mid heist, and that guy like. I think the sorcerer was like falling through, and then Holga was like holding his legs, and the guards like look off to the side, and she's just like, and like me in the theater, we were just like dying at that scene. It was, and again, like those are shenanigans that are super normal in a D&D situation, bad rolls or whatever, and then it's just like, hey, don't look at me, everything's fine. So I adored that section. It was hilarious.
It was very good. No, it was such a good, well-planned idea of a heist, some things that went wrong they had to overcome, and then just a good twist by the DM to be like, haha.
Yeah, when the mirror, or the painting, it was
the painting fell so they couldn't actually go through their little portal, which was a good obstacle, but mostly it's just the treasure's not where you think it was.
Yeah.
It was such a good moment, and why wouldn't the bad guy be doing exactly that? It all fit in such a good way.
And also the players being able to the characters being able to deduce like, oh, we saw this, we saw that, and we can put those things together and figure it out was also...
And go back. And it led into the pit fight. Oh, the pit fight.
I had such mixed feelings about the pit. I think the pit is where I have the most of my complaints, but again,
complain to me.
It's my D&D brain again, which I like. I was able to turn off for a bunch of other things, but in that scene, I think the one that just makes me, I think, the most mad, because it feels like they went against their own rules, right? So like if they have the druid shapeshifting a billion times, and it's like, that's just how this table is, and it's fine. But the gelatinous cube part, like they watched a man get stuck in it. They looked away and chatted for like 15 seconds, and they looked back, and this man was bones.
I don't know about this. They gave it some breathing room. I'm gonna have to rewatch it. We're gonna have to rewatch it and reconvene on there. I felt they gave it enough time to justify their plan.
He was just bones.
But it wasn't 15 seconds. It was a solid minute or two.
But also, not only that, but like it is acid. Well, like again, this is me trying to turn off my D&D brain. But like the acid in there is enough to kill like a commoner instantly, pretty much in one round, essentially, just the time it takes to be in there. Also, it's a strength check to get out. So I thought the barbarian was going to be the first to like swim her way out of it or whatever to get out. And then on top of that, like I just like she didn't know, like the druid knew that stuff was like moving around and all that stuff. She didn't know where it went. That could have just gone down into a solid brick where they had no chance of escaping. And she just came up with this plan immediately. And I was like,
it was very clearly a grid. So you had to know that all the adjacent panels would go up, but then they immediately had to run when they were down there. So it was definitely a gamble. But I think there was enough logic to say there's a chance we survive this.
There's a chance, but like you don't know. And like I guess in terms of like figuring that scene out, and then again like with the gelatinous cube and how long they were in there, and also like when she turns into a snake, I was like, you should have been burning off. Like when they came off, they were like gently, like just a little, like not even red, like their skin wasn't even red. Like
they were in there at most 5 rounds
in acid though.
5 rounds. It's D&D.
It's mild. Like
they weren't even half dead at that point.
That particular scene, I could not do it. Like their skin and their like, and obviously I get it. They're not going to have people like actors running around looking disgusting for the rest of the movie with their skin burned off or whatever. But I wish that they like just explored how dangerous it is. Also, the gelatinous cube can move. Why wasn't it moving? It didn't seem like it was a creature.
Presumably through some sort of that one you have to kind of hand wave the fact that it couldn't move. Yeah, they barely can move, but they can move.
Guess I'll hang out here, I guess.
One could argue that the gelatinous cube has learned that it will just be fed because it's just in this position. I would say though, let me ask you this: as a DM,
yeah,
characters could survive a few rounds inside of a gelatinous cube.
Correct.
Would you describe them as having just holes in everything and gaping wounds when that came out?
Yeah.
All right.
If they were like, if you're sitting in acid, I would be like, your skin is fucked. like every exposed part of your skin is like burned.
Because the HP problem is inherent to D&D, whereas their skin's all fucked, but they take a long rest and it's fine now. So HP being an analogy, I guess, and it's like this is your cumulative ability to fight, and really it's the last point that is you taking an actual real solid wound.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem where I would agree that being inside your gelatinous cube should do those things. Mm-hmm. But then how do you justify them healing?
Yeah, the long rest stuff is definitely where it's like it's just nonsense.
So I think this falls into an existing TTRPG problem about damage. But you're right. They should have been more acid. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying it's an accepted level of wrong.
Correct. Yeah. And also that's something that I get as well, like as a viewer, where it's like, am I really going to get that mad about this? And I think just because of like, there were so many leaps to conclusions in that like very short scene of like not very short, but the whole, arena scene or whatever had a lot of them being like, oh, not this, oh, not this, and
you gotta remember that combat took 6 hours real time.
That's true. That's very true.
They had lots of time to figure it out, but no, in the moment it was very quick. It was very exciting, very action packed, but a lot of jumps to conclusions and faith. I questioned the bracelet coming off. I was like, that feels like just an easy out.
I actually didn't really see the trailers before I saw the movie because I tried desperately not to see them. So when I rewatched it, I realized that like it shows all of them jumping into the gelatinous cube in the trailer. And like I think if I had seen that, it would have primed my brain to just be like, just understand that they're not going to do it right. It's just going to be a weird, like seeing the whole fucking team jump in there. But anyway,
the Displacer Beast was cool.
Yeah, Displacer Beast was cool. I kind of wish they were fucking up more people because and again, it's a family movie, I imagine, so they can't do very much. And I think that's also part of the reason in some ways, like obviously the choreography was amazing, but it was a very like bloodless, like safe combat, which I understand, and that's okay. It's not a complaint, but it was. I just wanted to see Displacer Beast absolutely fuck someone up. And they did have like a cutaway where like someone turns around and they're like, oh, like, it's just like swipe or whatever, which fine.
Well, that's fine. But what they did, the magic they sprinkled on, the movie magic to go, see all these problems? You don't even see those because what we did is we showed you the Dungeons and Dragons TV show people.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
here. Look at
Here's
this.
here's the cameo everyone was not
Uh,
expecting.
it
Uh,
was a joy to see them. I was sad that the DM from the show wasn't somewhere.
yeah.
When we were seeing like the rich people, I was like, that Baldy could be, but no, that's not. It's not a direct obvious, so it's not.
I think it would be so hard because he's so obvious. I feel like he'd be too obvious. I'm glad they did what they did, where it's like, yeah, you can see that
No.
being just like a regular group.
I
Yeah,
didn't
so
catch
like,
it the first time they showed up, but when it got to them in the cage, I was like, oh, was that? Oh my goodness!
yeah.
I didn't even. Well done.
They were also
But
pretty small and like in the back the first time you see them. So like
mm,
it hit me a little late, I remember, because like actually they cut away from that scene and I went, oh. I was like, I caught it, but we changed scenes already, so I was a little late. But no, that was the Delina's cube thing broke my brain. I don't understand. Like, how did she lose that? But like nothing else. Like she had a bracelet and all this other shit on. I was like, that's the only thing you lose. And again, your skin came out totally fine. It's acid. Like again, like she shouldn't be melting off. It was very quick, and she was able to kind of like yank it out. I think Holga helped her, or was like there next to her when she yanked it out.
yeah, what I think would have helped is they showed healing magic.
Yeah.
The paladin used it.
Yep.
So, if only they had someone like, say, a druid that had cure wounds.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing, is I was wondering if that was going to come up later too, if like someone got hurt and she was like, oh, I can do this too. But as I said, there's 0 spells from her the whole damn thing.
Yeah, having somebody with that ability was a great way to be like, here's some D&D combat wounds with no consequences.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could have something nasty happen and then be like, we're fine, don't worry, we're fine. And
See,
yeah,
what happened, Foos, is they were fine, but just after they cut away is when it started melting, and then they cured it, and then when we cut back, they were still fine.
and then they're still fine.
It all happened off screen.
They didn't look fucked up when they got out. Yeah,
Well, it's delayed acid. That's how acid works.
Oh my god. I think it's also, from a background of like whatever. Like I've come across things that aren't like terribly healthy for your body, and all the like physical labor I've done fixing up houses and stuff. And it's like if you pour the wrong thing on you and and feel it immediately. So it's like the idea of being surrounded by it, and they're taking their goddamn time pulling these guys out. And I get that it's like it's a struggle to get them out, and I didn't want them to be like, whoop, we can just come right out real easy. But they were in there for a time, and I don't know.
5 rounds tops.
What'd you say?
5 rounds tops.
And again, that man was bones. Bones.
He was bones in like 20 rounds.
But I don't think it was 20 rounds.
It was a solid minute or two.
If you rewatch it before I do, please tell me what the time is on that.
I'll time it. I'll bring a
Just
stopwatch.
Your timer and just tell me what it is. Because yeah, that part I just struggled with so much. And even when she turned into a snake or whatever, and I was like, why wouldn't you just turn into a fly again? If you're a snake, you're taking damage out the whole time. And again, I was like, turn off your D&D brain. It's too much. It's too much. But from here, I think we can kind of like, I guess, fast forward ish to sort of the sort of like climax of everything happening. And the first thing I thought of in the scene where he's getting them to kind of like evacuate the arena with their like pouring out all the treasure, essentially, I was like, you poured some of that over the like public. Those are like chalices and gold.
I did think that as
You're killing some people.
This gotta hurt. God, fucking Forge, that moment, I was like, you've successfully brainwashed this person into turning against their own father.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet even this would not have unbrainwashed. And then you're going to go ahead and pull a knife. Like, I mean, maybe it was your only way out of there. Maybe you weren't going to fight them all off. But I was like, that's, you're willing to throw away a lot of work.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, actually, we'll go to that part too anyway. But when she threw the potato at him, I don't know why, but that felt like such a jarring scene. Because it cuts from like him just talking and being like, aha, I'm the evil guy, blah, blah, blah. And then like slow motion cut to just her hand. And I was like, and I guess, again, this is the D&D brain. I had to try and shut down for a second. But like, as a DM, it's like, I can watch you do that. So like, it's going to be hard to like hit me in the face and me not notice. And he didn't react to it coming to his face in slow motion the whole time. And it was, sorry, good?
No, just I'm realizing, first off, he was very focused on Edgin.
Of course.
Maybe Edkin cast some sort of enthrall spell, which I'm pretty sure is also only verbal.
Okay.
Which so it wouldn't be, and the verbal component is just the words you're using to distract them. So maybe, but I didn't even consider that at the time. But what I'm saying is we were wrong. This was the rage moment.
This was it. We missed it all the other times.
No, it was just a callback to potatoes, which are weirdly her vibe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. That's fine.
She liked potatoes, and that's fine. But she threw a potato at the beginning, so she had to throw a potato at the end.
She had to throw a potato again at some point, another time. I think what also felt weird about that scene, and again, if you watch it again before I do, tell me if I'm wrong. But I like the potato was obviously CGI, and that's fine. I don't really care about that. But I think what bugged me is like they didn't even CGI any kind of like rippling on his face or anything. Like he only reacted when it hit him, so he didn't react at all when it was coming in his direction. And like, look, you can be caught off guard by something, but I feel like when it's here, you're gonna have slight like he's turning to notice it. Nothing. And then when it broke against his face, it was just him going, oh, no like impact or anything on his cheeks or nothing. So like it just that whole scene pulled me right out of it.
I think I'm calling it now. He cast enthrall canon.
And that's how he didn't look in the other way.
So he had disadvantage to perceive anything but Edkin. It's just magic.
Oh my god, maybe that's what it was.
No, but no, that was a good callback to be like, I promised the paladin I would share the wealth, and oh wait, I can do that in a clever way.
Exactly, yeah. And I also did like that the paladin was like, what are you gonna do with that? Yeah. So that was fun. He's the best character. He's the best guy.
No, I think he gets like half credit. The team gets half, and the paladin gets half for saving the day because it was his idea to give the gold to the people.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have sparked that scene that got everyone out anyway. And then I'm gonna kind of jump to the final fight, which was super fucking cool.
Yes, it was.
I think like especially. I think it was like 10 seconds or so of them going full on with everybody there because, you know, she had things where like they were in the Odaluke's resilient sphere or whatever. We're just like bouncing around. I was like, that's really cool. And again, knowing what it is cool to be like, I can see what that is, but I'm glad she wasn't like Odalukes and you know, like saying it out loud. The hand versus hand fight, I was so scared they were gonna do some bullshit like rocks, paper, scissor or like something too goofy. Thank goodness that didn't happen.
No, it was just good. And I was trying to decide. I was like, visually, I want to call that Maximilian Third and Grasp.
Yeah, that's
but mechanically, it feels like it's doing a lot what the other hand is doing. So maybe this is just Bigby. But it works both ways.
Yeah, I really think it was the Earthen Grasp, to be honest, just because like it I think I might be wrong here, but it felt like it was kind of tethered to the ground.
Yeah, like, visually it definitely felt like that spell. And honestly, I feel like if I were DM and someone's like baby's hand, I cast Earth and Grass. I'll go, fuck it, they're both hands.
Right. You got big hands. That's all we need.
But Minute Meteor showed up. That was a cool ass spell.
The
Resilient Sphere was also super fun to watch. I'm trying to think what else people cast.
I know he did Magic Missile at some point, and he also did Scorching Ray because while they were fighting, I saw the like beams of fire, and like he missed 2 of them, I think. And I was like, "That's how it goes," you know. It's just the chaos of like what's going on. And like she cast something else. I can't remember. Oh yeah, this wasn't in that combat, but I assumed that the tentacles to hold them was the Avard's black tentacles.
Thing.
But that's usually like a big area and effect thing. But I was like, it's fine. Good night, Buckley.
Good night.
Sleep well, girl. Yeah, we gotta start wrapping up eventually. But yeah, there were a lot of recognizable spells, which were really, really cool. And I love the way that they worked it in, but didn't make it heavy-handed. And I also like she dropped concentration on the dragon thing, the animated statue.
Yeah.
I think, like, was it the druid? Someone, I don't know. She got like bonked in the head, and then you saw her go like, ugh, and then
I think it might have been the bard.
I don't remember who it was, but like someone messed up her concentration, which
No, I'm wrong, because I'm pretty sure he was. Was it him under the dragon?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, exactly. The mouth fell around his face. I think it was the druid, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
I really don't remember. I have to go back and rewatch that part. But yeah, the whole fight scene was just super cool, and I think that I think they also did a great job of illustrating the the intensity of like, even if you're fighting one person, all the crazy shit they're doing in between, like everyone fighting them at the same time was really cool. I do know she did cast a shield spell too at some point. I think someone was about to hit her and I watched it just like kind of come up very quickly. And of course this is talking from like a week ago now, so like memory's not as sharp about it, but there were a lot of spells where when I was watching I was like, wow. So that was definitely cool. Seeing it represented in that way is I think rare. So definitely appreciate it for what it was. And of course, you know, my nerdy self was like, I wish it were longer, but it makes sense that it was the time that it was, and you know, the way that the combat rolled on, because it did, like the final showdown of them going crazy on each other at the end was short, but the fight itself was a while. She had them bouncing down the road and was like fighting with that guy with the hand for a while, and it was, you know, quite a time.
Someone somewhere is going to make a YouTube video breaking down how many rounds each combat took.
Yeah.
It's not going to be me, but somebody's going to do that, and then we'll have that information.
Exactly. So it was cool though. I definitely enjoyed that final fight. I will say from like the villain's perspective, I was like kind of bored with her as a villain. She served her purpose and she was fine, but I did feel like it kind of fell into the Marvel problem of like, she's not terribly interesting. Like, she's fun for being a villain, but that's where it kind of starts and ends, I guess. But I guess considering what she was, I don't know. I don't know if they had a whole lot that they could really.
No, with fantasy in particular as a genre, there's a lot of just evil wizard is evil.
Correct. Yeah, just bad. Just bad.
I'm sorry, were you looking for backstory? No, he is evil wizard.
Yes, exactly. And I don't necessarily need a backstory as to like, why is she the evil one? I think I just wanted a little more like personality from her, even if she is some like backstabby whatever, like this guy's a bitch. I almost wanted to hear more of that, and like, not that she has to be funny.
I think they could have given her more time interacting as the villain, because too much of the time was seeing her like in this disguise. Because the moments when she was being the villain, like talking to the guys she sent to go fight them, or like the guy who ended up fighting the paladin, when she talked with him, there was a little bit of personality. When you talked to like the Lich Spirit, there was a little bit of personality. Yeah. So seeing more of that would have helped. Exactly
that. And again, I don't think it's because like I don't know. I don't think it's because the actors did poorly or they represented her badly in any kind of way. I think it's just we needed more of her as a person, I think. And I think most of that is also because, I mean, the D&D people that I play with, I think a lot of times we delve into the character motivations and such so much that, you know, if you get the opportunity to, even if you fucking hate it and you think it's garbage, it's still fun to see it. So I think that's
it's crazy to me how deep y'all go, because you have been self-described as gamers first, which took me by surprise. And I've seen it firsthand in action a little bit, having played some games with some folks.
Yeah.
And wow, is it different? Yeah. From how D&D seems to be approached, because you guys don't neglect the story at all. No. You know, I think part of the problem is they did establish her, like when she talked to like her Lich Spirit boss, it was like, okay, well, you're an underling.
Right.
So you're here to do a thing. You're not even necessarily a person for the story's sake.
Right.
You're the villain's MacGuffin.
Yeah, you're a cog in the wheel right now. Exactly. You're the
she could have had more personality, or we could have seen more of the Lich guy. Yeah. If he was supposed to be the evil.
Or maybe like their interactions with each other, right? Because she was very like, you know, I will serve you or whatever, but maybe she's like, this guy's kind of a dick too, but you know, I still kind of agree with him or whatever. Like, I just wanted a little bit more from her. And one thing I really liked that I was cracking up, because when I was talking to it about dubs, I guess I was like, maybe it was too subtle. But like her disguise thing, when she would change from like black to red, she did it numerous times, and the first few times was like very cool because it was very, very subtle. And I was like, wasn't that cool? And he was like, yeah, when she did it at the end, it was cool. I was like, no, she did it like 4 or 5 times. He's like, what, really? Like, no, she did it. I'm like, no, I promise you, she did it more than once. So I actually just really like the visuals of that, because
it was a good visual. I do also appreciate having multiple villains. Because they had a personal villain to fill that role of having someone with personality, it didn't hit as hard.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason why he was Forge was such a big part of the storyline, because it was just like, we do need at least a personal tie to it in some way. So like, it's going to be a little hard to get, you know, the Bard storyline to line up perfectly to be like, I hate all of the Red Wizards of Thay. So, you know, let's make sure that his daughter's turned against him and, you know, that guy's a dick and whatever. So.
I mean, he did pretty well hate the Wizards of Thay.
He did. But like,
yeah.
That couldn't be the only reason, because it, you know, it almost turns into the Guardians thing where it's just like, well, why do you want to save the world from like a very selfish person? And the other one's like, I live in it. Like, that's why. So I think just for the sake of that particular storyline, it made sense the way they went along.
No, they needed Forge, especially because when you break down like story-wise, she could just as easily have been a monster of some kind.
Yeah 100%.
That was her role.
Yeah, exactly. She was just kind of like the big guns or whatever. And actually, I was also at first I was like almost a little worried with the way like they kind of like killed her with the owlbear like shaking the shit out of her.
Yeah.
Like initially I was like, oh no, don't make it too silly. And honestly, weirdly enough, if they kept it there where she was just shaking her or like bashing her against the ground, I think I would have been like, oh, okay, whatever. But like the fact that she chucked her into the building and then like shit fell on her again felt super D&D for the like, fuck this guy, fuck him, I'm gonna throw the body. You know, like just the insanity that comes after, I think reminded me so much of the spirit of it that I was like, okay, that was good.
No, it fit. Because when it happened, I was like, this is going to be Hulk in Avengers, which was fine and it worked, but it's been done.
Exactly.
So it was still the right amount of funny, and then felt very D&D for the way to completely cap it off.
100%, yeah. And I was, when it first started, I was like, okay, I get what this is. But they did it in their own way, which was good. And in general, like, I still, of course, as you heard, have some of my gripes about it. There are certain things that, like, I think in my mind I'll still have trouble grasping, but that's mostly because I'm coming in with background information. If you're just going into this, it's fine. It's fun. It's fine. I will once again say that I'm glad that they leaned into more practical things rather than a lot of CGI, because I think, I don't know, a lot of eyes I think are getting smarter to that, so it's a little more obvious, and it dates things so quickly. Even things from like 5 years ago, I feel like when I'm watching, I'm like, ooh, I can see how that's not very good now. So it is nice to see something that is a little more like practical in terms of the few races that showed up and all that. But it was a good time. I think in general it was good. I think I would change my rating because, like I said, I was kind of fresh off of the like, so many things didn't make sense and I don't like it. But I think Mark made us rate it on a D20 scale or something.
Yeah.
I think I'll still kind of stick by my like in general. If you don't know what you're getting into and you don't know anything about D&D, I think it still is like a 16, 17 on the D20 scale. But I think for someone who knows what's going on, of course you have to like shut your brain off or whatever. But I think I would change my score to like, I think 15 or something. It's fine. It's good. And I think I even said like, what did I say? Maybe like 13 or something.
That was what you said initially, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, in general, when you roll a 13, you're like, okay, that's not bad. There's a like, it's an over 10, so this is good. But I do think it carries a lot of the spirit of it in ways that I worried about. But taking time to marinate on it, I'm like, no, it was good. It was fine. But I still have my complaints. That gelatinous cube will haunt me forever.
I think you
makes me mad.
You were just so focused that you were like, man, they've been in there for like 8 minutes, and it was still the second set. She was still a snake on her way out when you thought that thought. You were just.
It took so long. Okay, like I said, whoever goes in next, just record it.
Stopwatch. We need 2 stopwatches. I'm gonna stopwatch the first guy, see how long until he was bones.
Yes.
And then we're gonna stopwatch them. Yes. And we'll see.
Full body jumping into that bitch, and again, like. It didn't move. Whatever magic bullshit you want to say.
I mean, it was supporting an entire pillar.
I don't know if it could.
I don't know if it could either. So I'm assuming it was trapped in there.
I don't think it is
because the pillar was on top of it.
Well, I think I recall. I might be crazy. No. I think those were the other ones. Never mind. I was like, maybe there were thin walls on the side, but even then, that wouldn't hold it up anyway. But then, if that's the case, that doesn't make sense because it couldn't hold it up anyway. And gelatinous cubes are like immune to bludgeoning damage because they could just like reform and like themselves back together anyway. So if it's supporting the pillar, it would have squished and then gotten out anyway. Do you ever introduce the solution and then make the person madder because they're like, that makes less sense?
Sometimes, because that was my main complaint with the pit. I was like, how though?
Yeah.
Like, what's driving this?
Yeah.
I guess magic, but.
Yeah, exactly. The mimic was cool. Going back to some of the other stuff. And I like that you saw it earlier because it was in the like carriage, I guess, where it was all the treasure. So that was cool that you got to see it kind of like getting into position. Essentially. Yeah, displacer beasts were cool. Oh yeah, I think I remember like gelatinous cubes were like technically large and like the whole crew fit in it, but I was like, it didn't seem that big. But that's fine.
Also a large creature takes up 4 tiles, and there were 4 of them.
Were there 4 of them? Oh yeah. No, there were, because yeah.
I will say one thing I had skipped over: when they do the distraction to break in, and the sorcerer's making an illusion of the guy singing.
Oh my god! Yeah,
that's my only real like. Okay, this went too far.
You think, really?
When it first started to fail, very funny, and then it turned into like a hologram falling apart. Like,
yeah.
It went on too long. If they cut it off halfway through the bit, I would have liked it more. But it didn't ruin anything.
Yeah. I actually 100% agree. I think exactly that. It went on for too long. Also, considering what was happening. Like, I think his foot was stuck in the ground or something. You like...
Someone wanted to do the melting illusion bit, and they're like, how do we justify it? He got stuck. I don't fucking care.
I know, but like, you could have just made it something else. Like, have someone else come up to him and be like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm, like, clearly trying to focus and talk at the same time. And that be the thing. Like, it just seemed weird that the barbarian who was like, come on, could have just hefted him and then like walked off, like what was going on with that? But yeah, I really loved that for the first few seconds, and then I was like,
no, it was a very funny bit, and then I feel it went on too long, but it wasn't egregious. It was just, of my options, the most egregious.
Mine, we know very clearly, but otherwise, yeah, it was fine. It was enjoyable.
I'm gonna go see it this weekend just so I can come back and tell you that the first guy was in there for 3 solid minutes, and they were in there for 15 seconds. And those are the numbers I'm reporting, regardless of whether they're true.
I'm just telling you right now. That's what I'm going to tell you right now.
Every time I report, it'll be longer. Yeah, he was in there 5, and they were in there about 9 seconds.
Yeah, believe it or not, he was in there for 35 minutes.
He was in there the whole... He jumped in at the beginning of the movie.
Well, the other person you saw was a different gelatinous cube and a different person, but he was there. You must have missed it.
I got to pay attention. I want to tell you.
Yeah, I know I will see it again. I just know it probably won't be for a little while.
No, I'm probably not going to see it this weekend.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I know this weekend probably not, and then next weekend definitely not.
No, I want to see it again, but since I've already seen it, I think I'll wait until it's like 3-4 weeks in so I can go to a mostly empty theater.
Oh yeah, so you can't have the kids kicking out the back of your seat. Yeah, I seriously no kids when we went to go see it. Like none. That's nuts. But anyway, any final thoughts in case we forgot any scenes that we wanted to mention or moments, I guess?
Not without getting to the specifics of like dialogue and jokes and things, and I mean, I think we spoiled enough.
Yeah. Which
for people finding humor for themselves. I mean, people, if they didn't want the things, they wouldn't be here. But no, just overall, solid movie. I'm glad I saw it. I will see it again before it leaves theaters. It was good enough that I want them to make another one.
Yeah, I think
with
that's
the paladin.
Yeah, the paladin better be a bigger part because, good God, he fucking super highlight of that movie. But yeah, exactly that. I think it was good. I think it's good enough for me to be hopeful for other expansions, or if they decide to do anything similar, so long as it's in the same spirit, I guess, then I have far more confidence in it than when I was first coming in.
I want them not only do I want them to make another one, but I want this to be successful enough that maybe they make multiple more, but that's neither here nor there. I want them to realize this is successful enough IP that someone somewhere with the money to make a movie calls up R.A. Salvatore and say, "Hey, can we do the
Oh,
Drizzt?
I would
Can
be.
we,
Do you call him Drizzt? Are you one of the Drizzits?
this might be Drizzt. I pronounce it differently every time.
How dare you? No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I think there's got to be an it in there because every time they phonetically write out someone saying his name wrong, they have an it in there, and they're not reading his name; they're hearing someone say it.
I look. I've heard the author, and he says Drizzt, so you're wrong. And the weird thing is, I actually heard it earlier today because I was watching like an interview with him, and I was like, "Cool, I'm gonna keep this on in the background while I work." And I heard him say Drizzt, so this is fresh in my brain, and you're at a disadvantage.
No, you're right. It's Drizzt, but somehow that is someone's hearing an it in there.
Yeah.
But I want them to do it. I want them to shut up and let the author make the final call. I want the first 3 movies to be entirely subtitled because they're speaking Undercommon.
I'm honestly scared. Like, I don't know if I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for a relationship like that. Like, it's so dear to my heart because I was definitely reading those books when I was way too fucking young. Because Nenders was into those books, and he's like, "These are cool. Why don't you read them?" I was like,
They're great.
I fucking love them. They were such a huge part of my childhood, and they were like such a huge part of why I became so obsessed with like fantasy and even characters like that and Rangers and things like that. Like, it's such a defining thing for me that I would be very scared if I were to see it in theaters. But I also had the same thing about, Marvel movies when they were first coming out, because I was like, this is so much my childhood. I'm scared. And they came out and I was like, this is great. This is wonderful. Give me more.
Well, yeah, but then they did my boy Thor dirty at every opportunity.
Yeah. Now it's less so, but when it first was coming out, I think they were doing such a great job. And if they did something similar with the Drizzt stories, then I would be cool with that. But I'm so scared. I'm so scared.
I'm just saying, if they can make many of the Marvel movies pretty good, like the first Iron Man, I have no complaints. All of the Thors could have been better, but that's me being extra picky because I love Thor comics.
Yeah.
But they can do that. And before we learned that giving any money to the Harry Potter franchise is morally not a good idea.
Yeah.
They made those books into good movies. And as the guy who read the books, I had complaints about the things they didn't do or the things they changed. But overall, they did the stories justice.
Right. And
Lord of the Rings, they did them justice. There's hope.
Yeah, there is hope. There is. I'm just scared. I think I'm so scared about this also just because, like, I have very specific, like, visuals in mind. And even in the ways that I've seen just, like, represented in video games or even more recent things, I'm like, don't know if I love it. Like,
this is where not being visual helps, because I must picture something. Like, I can get absorbed into a book, but I don't have, like, a solid image.
Oh no, I do. And also, like, part of it is like I used to stare at those old fucking, illustrations. Oh my god, I don't know. Did you ever see the really, really old Drizzt illustrations for the books?
Probably not. Most of mine. I have a couple that were sold in like box sets, and then some that were like one massive like compendium that is like 5 books in one. I
will share some photos with you later on. He is an old, ugly man. like even though they describe him as being this like slender, young-looking man, the really old books, he's an ugly ass man. I have one of the books back there, which I would grab if we're not going to be like wrapping up. But after that, like they started updating the artwork for it, and it was really, really cool, and he looked awesome and all that. But I've noticed lately with a lot of like drow things, they're doing interesting things with their skin tones. Like in the books, they're always like, this is an obsidian skinned person. And like I've seen, like, look, whatever alterations or whatever you want to make at your own table or whatever, that's fine. I don't care. I'm not going to tell you how to play your game or something. But I've seen like even official representations in like the D&D game, like the online, the MMO, where they have like kind of purplish, pinkish skin, but then it's not even dark. It's like a weird lavender, like light color or something. And I'm like, no, they're black. Not even like African black, like black. Like they have obsidian skin, and that's how they were described in the books. And that always stuck with me as like how dark they were, that they had like inhuman colors and they weren't really pale. And I'm seeing a lot more like pale drow, and my brain can't handle that.
No, I'd have to look at some of the art on the books I have, because in my head they're a very, very dark purple.
Yeah, and even that, like dark purple, I don't mind. But like there are some of like just now where you'll see he's like very pale and like almost like a grayish lilac-y lavender. But oh my god, it was
I don't even think that's right. I think I'm just mixing up the fact that he has purple eyes.
He has purple eyes. Yeah.
Because as I'm thinking about the art on these
Mhm.
books, no, he's definitely he's black.
Yeah.
He's not like obsidian otherworldly black in the art I have. He's just black. He's an elf who's black.
Yeah, there's one book, I think it might have been like the Crystal Shard or something, but like one of the older books where like they were just starting to transition into like nicer looking art and not this like ugly old stuff, where he definitely has like brown skin on one of them, like, and not like he's a darker black man, like no, he's like brown, maybe like a little bit darker than I am. And I was like, are you getting the artists to like read the books and like how you're describing it, because that's not it at all. So I think I'm already at a disadvantage because I'm going in with those thoughts when I'm already like, he has to look and sound the way I think it is, and I'm already worried.
I suppose some executive somewhere is going to say, "Can we really make an entire city that's all evil and every single person's black?" Someone's going to say something, and I don't want to be the guy dealing with that question.
Yeah, I mean, also they're the dark elves and all that, so yeah.
It turns out a lot of the lore was questionable at one point.
I mean, almost everything is. I mean, like even like Tolkien was, has a lot of problematic shit going on in his lore as well. Like it's a lot of stereotypes and whatever that they're like, this is the evil race, and they are suspiciously dark or otherwise differently shaped in the face to something else that we can relate to in real life. So yeah, it's unfortunately a problem. But I've also read those with a certain image in my mind, and
I will say there's a chance they can make good movies because they did Lord of the Rings, but there's also a chance that they could be Hobbit.
Exactly.
And 1/3 of the Hobbit movies were decent, pretty good.
Yep.
And then there was a downward trajectory.
Yeah, 100%. I do remember like when they first came out, I was still in the like, I'm just happy to see these kind of mindset. So I was like, it's not that bad. And then I rewatched them a few years later. I was like, oh.
I have no real complaints about the first one. My problem is that one thin book could have been one movie.
Correct.
If you're going to split it into multiple, the most I think you could have gotten is 2.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do 2 movies for a book that should have been 1, then you shouldn't be inventing shit. You should do everything that was in the book perfectly, because you don't have the excuse we couldn't fit it all on screen. It's only 90 minutes. Nah, 6 hours. You had all the time.
100%. Yeah. Super.
We've gone very far from the D&D movie.
We have, and we were supposed to be getting going. So with this super late, anyone else who is still with us, we're gonna go raid somebody. And I don't know. You know what? We haven't bothered the girls around these worlds in a while, so let's go raid them. With as few people as here, because we were spoilering everything.
We chased everyone away.
We chased everyone away.
Come back and watch it after you've seen the movie. It'll be recorded.
Yes, honestly though, like I'm glad that we had this time, just because like we clearly had a lot to say. So.
No, I was curious, and I didn't even think about the gelatinous cube, and it's a valid point.
It makes me mad. Okay, we're gonna go. Have a wonderful night. Thank you for hanging out, and Joe, thank you for coming along on this chatty chats. So, we'll see you later, and let's go give Girls Around These Worlds some love. Good night.
Let's do it. Good night. Thank you.